It's okay. Yeehaw.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm at a Thursday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you. A lot of stuff to talk about today and get into. NFL football a couple days away from Chiefs and Texans, and the divisional round games getting underway. National championship game in college football on Monday night. All three of the local teams in action this weekend in college basketball with the Sunflower Showdown tipping off at noon. They're in Lawrence on CBS, Mizzou, and Arkansas, 5 o'clock on the SEC Network, and, of course, 3:30 Chiefs and Texans with a full day of coverage right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB with the Sunflower Showdown and, of course, the Chiefs and Texans with the pregame show for the Chiefs, pregame for KU, the game, the postgame, and on into coverage, and then post-game with Jack Johnson of the Kansas City Chiefs and Houston Texans game.
Sorry, I just
You're
laughed.
Smiling and laughing about something. I don't know. All of that stuff is true.
No.
That make you laugh? Does that make you smile?
Completely different.
I said Sunflower Showdown. You just started smiling and laughing.
No,
So funny about it to
this
you,
had somehow gone
Chucklehead.
by my mind. Do you know where Deontay Johnson is just got claimed by?
Yeah. It's absurd. It's absurd. Like, what are we doing here? Go ahead and tell the fine folks out there if they did not see Deontay Johnson, who was
I don't know
waived
how I
by
didn't
the
see
Houston. Well, let's put it in perspective before we say where he's at. Traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Traded from Carolina to Baltimore. Played 3 weeks. Released by Baltimore.
Yeah.
Claimed by Houston. Played a couple of weeks. Released by Houston, and now claimed by
The Baltimore Ravens.
What the hell is going on?
He won't officially move to the Ravens until February 10th, the day after the Super Bowl. But the reason why they did this, they somehow have a chance to earn a compensatory pick
Dude,
in 2026, depending on the contract Johnson signs. So if you're Deontay Johnson, you're probably just going, what the...
See, it's funny. Before I read that, before I read that he's not eligible until February 10th, the day after the Super Bowl for the Ravens, when I saw they claimed him, my first thought was, Zay's done. Zay Flowers done for the year. Like, they've been slow playing it about, we'll see when Zay Flowers comes back, but they need to bring somebody in that knows the offense to a degree, and they at least, the devil you know, right? They've got Tylan Wallace and a couple of other guys there, obviously Rashad Bateman, but I'm talking about behind the starters, behind Zay and Rashad. Wow, you're going back to bring in Deontay Johnson, who you released because of some issues there. Zay's done. And then I hear that he's not eligible till February 10th and the whole compensatory pick. I'm like, okay, well, this is, front office paperwork and, spreadsheets, moving some things around and getting some draft pick potential and cap space and all of that
They
stuff.
might just get their pick back. They give like 4 spots. They actually may gain a pick from bringing in Deontay Johnson.
That's what we thought about Joshua Uche, and that ain't going to happen. Yeah. I don't know that he's going to get a big deal for the Chiefs to get a compensatory pick.
Deontay Johnson has clearly not learned his lesson, by the way. We can move on, but according to ESPN's DJ Ben Amy, that Johnson asked for his release after the Texans won the playoff game because apparently he was visibly upset as he sat fully dressed in his locker after the Texans win victory in a playoff game over the LA Chargers.
In which he played 20 snaps in the game. He got to play
15 out of 17.
15, okay.
Yeah.
So he played 15 snaps in the game from being on his 4th team in a calendar year, playing in a playoff game and winning, but being visibly upset in the post-game locker room because he didn't get the ball thrown to him and having to be consoled by Joe Mixon and who else? Their safety that was suspended for Houston.
The linebacker?
No, the safety that was suspended for
Eric Murray.
No.
Are you thinking linebacker?
Is it
linebacker?
Yeah,
Zaire.
Zaire.
That's why I kept saying
Sorry about
linebacker.
that.
I'm like,
Sorry about
linebacker?
that.
I was thinking Petrie, though, because Petrie's a bit of a head-hunter,
it wasn't Petrie.
He hasn't been suspended.
Al-Shahir,
Al Shahir and Aziz Al Shahir and Joe Mixon were the ones that had to console Deontay Johnson
Gosh,
in the
dude,
locker room because he was that upset. And the next day, the Texans were like, "Hey, you got to go, dude."
That is the definition of a locker room cancer: is when you win a playoff game and the wide receiver, who's basically wide receiver 4 on said team,
who's been around for 5 minutes,
is like, "Nah, I should have got better numbers. Look my way.
I'm pissed off."
You won by 20.
Yeah. That's why he was. Why he wanted.
Does he get another job next year?
Dude, who would sign him? Who brings him into the locker room? Because it's one thing to be like, well, if you get him into a place that's winning, and playoff time, it'd be different. No, it's not. Like he was complaining about not getting the ball on a team he's been around for 5 minutes.
Carolina
in a
made
game
sense
in which they won
to an extent because you could understand Carolina.
Well, you need to give some weapons to. You traded DJ Moore and then brought in your rookie quarterback, and the best thing he was throwing to was Adam Thielen. So, okay, let's go get Xavier Legette. He's got Adam Thielen, and we'll trade for Deontay Johnson. And now we'll give him some weapons, Bryce Young, to get a real good indication and a look of what Bryce Young is.
By the way, I mean, didn't they turn right around when he left the locker room? Like their team completely flipped,
better.
and
Touché,
Bryce
sir.
got more confident almost when he left.
Good call on that.
Well, because my thought was, okay, I get him being a little upset too. You went from the Steelers, who are at least a good organization, to one of the worst with the Panthers. I get it, you're losing. Maybe you're just frustrated because you're not used to this. But then you go to the Ravens. The Ravens have been a cornerstone franchise for a long time. They win. And you went from one winning franchise to another team in the Houston Texans that won a playoff game, and you're still doing this? Nah, dog, you're done.
Yeah, I don't know. They might get the compensatory pick, but I don't know who's signing that guy. 913-912-4810. Here's how the show lines up. Kent Swanson, KC Sports Network, comes up at 11 o'clock. Matt Verderam, we'll talk with him coming up at noon from SI. We'll hear from Andy Reid, and we'll see whichever players are at the podium today for the Kansas City Chiefs. That comes up in the 1 o'clock hour. Let's start off with some college basketball as KU in action last night, falling to Iowa State 74-57. An 11-0 run there at the end for Iowa State to put it out of reach.
Yeah.
I mean it wasn't a 17-point game. Okay, that thing was a lot. I mean, it was 5 points with 5 minutes to play. So there's some things that certainly happened in that stretch that resulted in Iowa State just sort of an avalanche there at the end where you knew it was over. KU sort of knew it was over. Iowa State was riding the entire crowd.
Yes.
All right, that's the ball game. Score whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The game's over. KU in that game last night, we saw Iowa State, and I thought KU would cover. I thought they would lose. I thought they would cover. I thought it would be a closer game. But we see how good Iowa State is, and we see how tough it is to play on the road in some of these places. Certainly, Ames has always been a tough place to play. Otzelberger's team is really good this year. I think there are a number of takeaways from last night's game where you look at the talent on the floor, and it's not indiscernible between Iowa State and KU. And that's not something we're typically used to seeing in college basketball in the Big 12, where you go, I mean, Iowa State's had their teams in the past.
Sure.
But it's not something that we sort of get used to saying, well, KU's on the floor against this team, and this team's just as talented as they are. And we've seen that a couple times this year for KU, obviously with Michigan State and North Carolina and Duke. It's a different level. And I'm not saying that was the case with West Virginia or Arizona State, but you can make a strong case that it was that with Missouri. You can make a strong case that it was that with Iowa State and how they played last night. I want to hear from Bill Self because a lot of the talk was, about the loose balls that Iowa State was grabbing and, turning Kansas over. And we've seen that be an issue at times for KU on the road. Walking into a buzzsaw and that team just overwhelming them early. And that's what happened with turnovers for KU against Mizzou, turnovers for KU against Iowa State, loose balls that they weren't getting to. Here's Bill Self weighing in on the loose balls that Iowa State was grabbing, and also sort of if it's an effort thing, what was he seeing in the game as to why it came down to what it felt like anytime there was a ball on the floor, Iowa State was coming away with it.
I actually thought our effort was good. I thought our competitiveness wasn't very good. The thing that, Iowa State's got a good team, and they got talented guys, and TJ and his staff has done a terrific job. But really what makes them who they are, I bet you they get 75% of every 50-50 ball. If there's a ball in the air, they seem to get it. And I thought in the first half there was probably 5 or 6 balls on an offensive rebound or something that they got that could have been our balls. Now, we tried hard. I mean, I'm not, but there's a difference between trying hard and actually competing. And I think that they were better that area. The first half, we stunk, and it was 32-30, and we didn't close the half right, and they had a player play like a first-team All-American, and he's terrific. Second half, it got away from us a little bit, but we were competitive and got it back to, what did we get it back to, 4 or 5? And then we got it back to 3, and then Juan's 1 of 6 from the free throw line and stuff. So we had some chances, but there was no question they were better tonight, even though I think that if things have gone a little bit better for us or fallen differently, then it could have been more competitive and maybe been had some pressure inside the 2 or 3 minute mark, but obviously they made more plays.
Zeke said competitiveness, effort, whatever comes from pride. I wonder, who do you lean on this team to kind of drag that out of the rest of the guys?
Well, I actually think if you guys watched the game, there were a couple of possessions there in the first half that K.J. Adams was the most competitive guy in the game. I mean, his hands on every ball, and we didn't have anything to show for it. I would say K.J. as much as anybody. But let's, I don't want to spin this negatively. It wasn't a lack of effort. It was a lack of really understanding and respecting how competitive you had to be successful in this game. Guys still try, but try's the baseline. Everybody freaking tries. You don't get a ribbon for trying. So that's the thing that I thought we were lacking as much as anything tonight.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Oh, no, I wanted to hear the end. Sorry, Dylan. I actually did want to hear the end. I left it in there for a reason. And here's what, hold on, I'll preface it by, I left it in there for a reason because listening to Bill Self's press conference, he didn't sound all that upset.
No.
He didn't sound like I'm pissed with how we played today. He sounded like a guy that was like, this is what happens when you go on the road in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been to Iowa State before. This is kind of what happens. I'd like us to see us play a certain way or play better, the loose balls or that competitiveness, that toughness, whatever that might have been there trying. You don't get a ribbon. But, these things happen on the road in the Big 12. So I left the in there for a reason to sort of emphasize that Bill Self didn't seem like he came away with this game like, oh, my God, this is a terrible effort, and what are we going to do now?
All right, thanks, Coach.
I guess I'm done.
And the look on his face, like, I guess I'm done. He said, thanks, Coach, I guess I'm done. Here we go. He didn't seem like it was where sky is falling, I'm pissed, look how he played. I gotta rip the paint off the wall, like he did at halftime against Arizona State.
Yes.
Like it was coming out and it was like, all right, this is different. You guys better come out and play your asses off because, have some pride in wearing that damn jersey. Because I think there are a lot of teams that are going to go to Iowa State and be overwhelmed. And I think in Lawrence, Iowa State may be overwhelmed.
Sure.
Because those two teams there on a neutral floor, we may see it here in Kansas City coming up in March. That would be awesome. That arena will be nutty if it's KU Iowa State on a Friday night or Saturday night or something.
I hope it is, or I hope, you know what? I'll say I hope K-State, because that means K-State wins and they can make the tournament.
That's fine.
But Iowa State, KU is going to be electric.
The level that they played at, there's a couple of things that stood out for me as to sort of what happened in the game. They got within 5 at the 5:37 mark, and from the 5:37 mark to 4:15 left to go in the game, in that minute 17, or minute 25, whatever, essentially the game was over.
Yeah.
They got within 5, and they had such an opportunity, 2 different shots in the air that I think the game could have been different. Baduga misses the free throw because he got the and one on the fast break. He has the pump fake, turns around, gets fouled, knocks it down 5, misses the free throw. Offensive rebound for KU. Zeke Mayo, 3 in the air, misses. Offensive rebound, Rylan Griffin, 3 in the air, misses. Yeah. That would have been a 5-point possession if one of those shots go down, because Badunga's layup, missed the free throw, hit a 3. You foul Iowa State on the other end. They hit one of 2 free throws. KU comes back down, now down 6, feeling they've got some momentum. And A.J. Storr takes just an awful 3.
Yes.
Just an absurd, I'm going to try to get mine. I'm guarded. This is early in the shot clock. I'm not making Iowa State guard. We're not making them work.
Dude thought it was Caleb Grill.
Yeah, I'm just going to. That was a heat check 3.
Yes.
Only he hasn't been hot since last year. That was a heat check 3. And it was a terrible miss. And you saw Bill Self immediately and what the hell are we doing? They come down. Iowa State gets fouled again. But the difference in what happened then in missing the 2 free throws and Iowa State getting the offensive rebound on the second free throw and Lipsey burying the 3. The offensive rebound, the defensive miscommunication of, no, you've got Lipsey. No, you do. No, you got him. No, you do. No, you got him. Wide open 3, buries it. They're down 9. 2 threes in the air for KU, Mayo and Griffin to be down 2. And 45 seconds later, you're down 9. That was the game, because I think KU scored 2 more points the rest of the way.
I get what you're saying as far as individual possessions.
Yeah, right.
But as far as the
I'm saying that was the opportunity. That was the moment, right?
Yes.
2 threes in the air was the moment if KU was going to steal that on the road from being down 12-13 in the second half.
That was the right way, because they did not play good enough. Right. Right now, I was very high on Kansas. I think they're a very good team still. They'll figure it out. 17 turnovers yet again. This team turns the ball over way too much for a team that's not a prolific scoring team. You cannot turn the ball over 17 times and shoot 40% from the field and shoot 30% from the free throw line.
And only get there 11 times. But that's what KU's been all year. They're not a team that gets to the free throw line.
They're not aggressive enough. They're not. They settle too. My thoughts on DeJuan Harris. I love watching DeJuan Harris, but he settles too much. He's so good when he drives. Hunter Dickinson. You're a big dude. Stop settling. Be aggressive. 6 points? I know foul troubles. I get that. 6 points?
I think one of the things that Iowa State did really well.
4 turnovers?
Yeah. 10 turnovers between DeJuan, Zeke Mayo, and Hunter Dickinson.
You're not going to win.
Yeah. One of the things that I think Iowa State does well is being able to pressure on the wings. And, Bill Self sort of mentioned it last night that when the wings are pressured so much that the only guy that can really get the ball without being pressured was Hunter Dickinson or your big man, and now your big man's away from the basket. It's going to be tougher to score. It's like because crediting Iowa State with how they played, but also I think it's KU not answering the bell on the road again in a hostile environment. Last 2 times they've gone to a hostile environment on the road, they have come out and turned the ball over and couldn't play composed basketball. Against Mizzou, the first 15 minutes, they had 11 turnovers. They were down 17. The difference here in this game, which is where sort of the game you could say was lost, or maybe it just would have made it closer, but they still would have lost the game. But the first 5 minutes of each half last night, KU turned the ball over 8 total times, which is a pace for 32 in the game. But here's what's crazy about the first 5 minutes of each half. With those 8 total turnovers, KU was +4 in those 10 minutes. With those 8 turnovers, they were +4. So what it tells me is they were playing good defense. They were scoring on the offensive end, but they were also then wasting possessions. You have opportunities in those moments where you're getting stops on the defensive end and you're scoring, but in between there, you're careless too often in those 10 minutes. So you missed opportunities for KU to go on their run. For a KU run that they were +4 in those 10 minutes, they could have been +12. What's the difference there? Because again, it's a 17-point game, but that's as misleading as, Florida and Mizzou being a 1-point game when, Mizzou sort of had, control for a while, although the last 8 minutes they did have to play back and forth basketball. But you get the point. It was a 5-point game with 5 minutes to play. And then once that 3 went down for Lipsey, I think everybody just let go of the rope. I think there was a letting go of the rope for KU at that point. I also think it kind of was Bill Self not necessarily letting go of the rope. I think it was Bill Self acknowledging hey, we're not winning this game, so let me see if A.J. Storr, I keep him in the game. I keep these other guys in the game that I maybe wouldn't typically be in the game. A.J. Storr's barely playing. And on the road at Iowa State, he plays the last 5-6 minutes of the game and takes a bad shot, turns the ball over, misses a free throw, and you still keep him in the game. And I think part of that is maybe a recognition from Bill Self and an understanding of, hey, we have to find other scorers on this team. We have to find ways to score because we're not shooting the three very well, and we are one of the worst teams in America at getting to the free throw line. Ranked 364th in America at their free throw attempts to field goal attempts. And Iowa State is one of the best. Yeah. Mizzou is the second best in America. And those two games was a vast free throw disparity between the two. That is not a surprise. Mizzou shooting, 20 more free throws than KU in Columbia? Iowa State shooting, 15, 16 more? 14 more free throws than KU last night? Not a surprise. You have two of the better teams that get to the free throw line against a team that does not get to the free throw line. And that is a big difference in Bill Self this year than what we've seen from Bill Self in the past of being able to, how do we score? Well, like, for example, Missouri. How do we score? Oh, we're struggling here. Okay, well, they're going to get to the free throw line. How do we get a bucket? Well, let's get to the free throw line. Like fouls drawn per 40 minutes or the free throw rate for Mizzou. Like Hunter Dickinson's the best on KU. There are 7 guys on Mizzou that have a higher fouls drawn per 40 than the second best on KU.
Yeah.
Than the second best. They have 7 guys, the top 8 guys between Mizzou and KU of fouls drawn per 40 minutes. 7 of them are on Mizzou. And that's an overall team-wide sort of approach where Bill Self's not getting it from this team right now.
I'm starting to have a lot more questions about Kansas, which is it's one of those ones where I was super high on KU this year. I'm not ready to, again, throw in the towel, but the more I look at how they play, is this style conducive to going far Big 12, but also in the tournament when you are not a good three-point shooting team? You don't have a lot of scores because A.J. Storr has not been there.
Yeah.
You turn the ball over too often.
You don't get to the free throw line.
You don't get to the free throw line, and you can't shoot. I mean, if you were going, I need to try and find their three-point shooting percentage. Like Missouri was not a.
This year they're at 33%.
I mean, but where's that in college? I would love
199th.
Man, if you shoot 199th in the nation shooting threes, if you are not getting to the line and you turn the ball over that often, and you don't have guys who are great scorers in general, you got to win 65-62.
Yeah.
I see why you put Shaq Moore in, because if you're getting nothing from Storr, at least this way you have defensively a chance. And again, they had a chance in this game because it was a lower scoring game. The under still hit, by the way.
Yeah, and I do see why the last 4 or 5 minutes he stayed with Storr, because you're trying to find a way to go and score some points. I want to throw these numbers and see, it's obvious this is a little different for KU in not being able to get to the free throw line for Bill Self, but just how drastic and stark it is this year. The free throw rate, this is percentages in Bill Self's time at Kansas. You tell me what the outlier is here, okay? It's obvious what we're going to get to, but how much of an outlier it is, okay? This is the free throw rate percentage, a percentage of free throw attempts to field goal attempts, going back to 2004, his first year at KU. 39.4, 39, 35, 36, 36, 40, 41, 40, 39, 39, 40, 48, 43, 39, 36, 27, 33, 37, 30, 32, 30, 33, 19.9. That's this year. I mean, there are years where they have been double that for KU.
Most years.
Yeah.
It felt like.
He's in the 30s almost every year, and he's at 19.9. We'll round up. He's at 20. This team's at 20 this year. It's just, it's different. Now, they've never necessarily been an amazing three-point shooting team under Bill Self, but they've gotten to the free throw line, and they've been incredible inside the arc. I mean, they shot, 56% when they won the national championship inside the arc. They also had Ochai and some guys that knocked down threes. That's where my confidence in KU was this year. And I want to take a time out, and I want to get into a couple of other things from this game and look at maybe a bigger picture. That's where my confidence came for KU this year, is Rylan Griffin and A.J. Storr to go along with what you had with DeJuan and KJ and Hunter Dickinson, that you were going to have guys that can knock down shots on the outside. And you add that to what Dickinson and DeJuan can do on a screen and roll, Dickinson taking guys away from the basket, KJ's all-around play, guarding 1 through 5, and being just sort of that tough, hard-nosed player. I liked the construct of the team.
Yes.
It's one thing to go get talent, but you have to get talent and form a team around it. It's been one of my complaints for John Calipari. He can get talent, but does the talent fit in a puzzle for a team?
Zeke Mayo's been that dude.
Zeke Mayo's absolutely been that guy. And another reason why, I liked KU this year and what they could do because of what I thought they were adding in the scoring.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been the case. TJ Otzelberger in Iowa State, getting talent, bringing it in, but it fits like a puzzle piece. This year for Mizzou, it's fitting like a puzzle piece. And we're not seeing that as much from KU this year. Bill Self has always been able to sort of find that mix, and there's a lot of time left. There's plenty of runway left for KU to figure this thing out. And I do think Bill Self is still trying to figure it out, which is, again, why I think A.J. Storr played all those minutes there at the end, because Bill Self sort of felt like the game was over, but we also need to score, but we also need to take away and find ways to score moving forward. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to get into a little bit of a bigger picture. As I mentioned, talented teams and where's the talent at on the floor. And, Iowa State had has some really good players. Mizzou's got some really good players, talent that's out there on the floor. I want to talk about that from the bigger picture, and also KJ Adams and the injury. We'll find out what it ultimately is, but it didn't sound great when Bill Self talked about it last night. More Zone next. Lebo, go away.
That man
trying to
does
do a
not
radio show here.
Want us to do work.
Trying to do a radio show.
What's the Rex Hudler thing going on there with you?
Because, Todd, you got to go. In here bothering us. We're talking college basketball, and he's like, let me tell you about Oklahoma. And they're 0-4 start in the SEC. Something had to give last night. 0-3 Texas versus 0-3 Oklahoma. Look, I get it. Texas and Oklahoma. You don't just walk into the SEC and learn how to, play football and basketball, Oklahoma. It's a different conference, OU. You're going to get boomed the sooner you get there. All right, you find out pretty quickly. Football getting pushed around. Basketball 0-4 in conference. Welcome to the big boys, Oklahoma. Welcome to the big dogs.
It just means more.
All right? I did appreciate 0-3 Texas and 0-3 Oklahoma in conference playing last night. Like somebody in the Red River shootout had to win. Somebody had to go 1-3, and it was Texas on the road beating Oklahoma. Good on Oklahoma coming back from being down 15 or so, making it a little respectable. But Todd, go to work. I mean, you got Andy Reid and players today in locker room and stuff like that. You got to work on Saturday for the Texans game. Let's hope that you're working next week for all of the press conferences. Thank God the Chiefs don't play the Broncos this week because, boy, that matchup was really good for Denver and Sean Payton. Although, full transparency, it was the team I didn't want to see in the divisional round. Not that I was, as we said, not that you're scared of them. Rank the opponents you would rather see. It was Steelers, Texans, Chargers, Broncos for me. You guys flipped that and put Broncos, Chargers. Which I totally understand. As I said, I wasn't going to argue 3-4 if it's Chargers Broncos. It's a divisional game. I'm never a fan of those things in the playoffs. But we'll get to Sean Payton in a little bit throughout the show.
Please.
913-912-4810. Bill Self saying that one thing Iowa State does, and you see this with TJ's teams, is it's not just getting the loose balls and the effort and all this. As Bill Self said, it wasn't an effort. They were trying. It's a difference of trying and competitiveness and taking it to that sort of next level. So that, TJ Otzelberger's teams get 75% of the loose balls. Out-toughing teams, right? Isn't that, wasn't that KU's calling card? Isn't that what Bill Self would be doing to other teams? They would be the teams that would be pushing you around in your face defensively, on the floor, getting all the loose balls. And you'd be just frustrated, good. How do they keep coming up with every 50-50 ball? Every one ends up, and it was one, they're more talented. And when you're more talented, you're probably bigger, faster, stronger, and quicker to the ball. So, that. But I don't think it's a level of, they were trying, and KJ Adams was being competitive. But there's a toughness that it feels like is there with Iowa State. That was always there with KU. And it's not that it's not there this year. It doesn't seem like it's at that level of what we typically see from Bill Self. And I don't know what it's going to mean for next year, the year after that, or the year after that. But it's kind of interesting what we're seeing across college basketball of there's some talent in a lot of different places. When you've got some money to pay, Mark Mitchell did not go to Mizzou out of high school. He went to Duke.
Yeah.
And then Duke prioritized some NIL. They saw Mark Mitchell on campus. They prioritized NIL. Mizzou prioritized NIL. And now Mark Mitchell is at Mizzou.
Yeah.
With prioritizing the Indiana had Tamar Bates. Again, Tamar Bates didn't go to Mizzou. He went to IU. And then IU is sort of prioritizing who they're going to throw some cash at. And Mizzou needs to prioritize who they're going to throw some cash at. And now Tamar Bates and Mark Mitchell are at Mizzou and not at Indiana and Duke right now. And I think the same could be said for Iowa State. And it's not just talent assessment. It's talent assessment, how you get them in and coaching them to be a team. Because almost every coach out there can look around and go, well, yeah, that player is a stud. I want that player.
Sure.
Like, Kansas wasn't the only team that wanted Zeke Mayo. All right, a lot of teams wanted Zeke Mayo, but he's a Lawrence kid, so you got him. And, if they would have offered him $5 and Duke would have offered him $1 million, Lawrence kid or not, he's there in Durham. Like he's playing in Cameron, indoor stadium. He's there with John Shire. But we see different things. Like if I just look at the talent on the floor with KU and Mizzou, not in maybe not $1 million, but certainly a decade from last year to this year, would I have thought, Missouri can match up talent for talent with KU on the floor.
Yeah.
And they're able to do that because they're paying. Let's be honest, they're paying.
Well, there's positives and negatives of NIL, and this is one of the positives if you are a non-elite or a non-blue blood team.
It can start to level the playing field a little bit.
More so than we thought, because I thought originally the rich were going to get richer because I thought if you keep winning, you're going to have more money to throw around.
My thought was, and I gave the example of, I think it's Antonio Gibson. I should remember this.
The running back?
Yeah, I should remember it because I studied, because I covered him.
/ wide receiver.
Went to Alabama.
Yeah.
Not Antonio Gibson. Who was the player that played for New England? Running back for New England.
Ramondre Stevenson?
That went to Alabama. Gosh, I should know this. I always forget his name, and I covered him for 2 years.
So it could be Antonio Gibson.
Alabama running back, New England Patriots, Damian Harris. Gosh darn it, Damian Harris. Damian Harris was a Lexington high school legend. All right, he was the biggest thing in the state for 3 or 4 years, to where everybody followed that recruitment of, is he going to go to Kentucky? And he went to be the 4th string running back at Alabama. And when NIL came around, it's the example that I've continued to use, is that guy, to me, goes to Kentucky with NIL as opposed to Alabama, because he would have been a sponsor for every company in Lexington.
Sure.
He was the star. You had Kentucky fans packing his high school games to go and watch Damian Harris pick up 300 yards a game and 5 touchdowns because they're trying to get. You had games where Mark Stoops could drive down the road to watch him. Instead, he took a helicopter to land in the field next to it to sort of show off and like, hey, we want you. All right.
Yeah.
And he still chose Alabama. Growing up a UK fan, still chose Alabama to be like the 4th running back there, right? NIL can level the playing field. I think that's a guy that ends up staying home and makes tons of money, whether it's NIL Collective or all the different endorsements they're going to throw his way, being a local legend. All right. And KU fans loving up Zeke Mayo. Yeah. Local guy, loves KU, grew up there, proving that he's good enough, getting the opportunity, and proving that the opportunity that Bill Self gave him was not misguided.
Well, also, I think you're right with Luther Burden could be one of those guys.
Luther Burden got a lot of money. Is he going to go to Oklahoma? Is he going to go somewhere else? Missouri's saying, we're going to give you more.
We're going to give you chips.
But whatever they offer you, we're giving you more.
Yeah.
Because we're going to prioritize you, and you're going to get endorsements, and you're going to get all these things because you're a local guy staying home and helping turn the program. It can level the playing field. And I think part of it, like when we look at it, like the rich is going to get richer, well, they were already getting those players.
Sure.
But the local players have way more of a chance of staying home locally because there's more earning potential to be a local legend, as opposed to nobody at Duke cared about Mark Mitchell in high school.
Sure.
Cared about Aiden Shaw in high school.
Yeah.
But when Dennis Gates gets hired, what's the first thing that he does? He calls and visits and talks to Aiden Shaw.
Yeah.
And everybody's watching it around. And it's one of the reasons why even though he's not playing much, I'll still, every time he gets in the game, root for Aiden Shaw.
100%.
Because he stayed with the commitment and prioritized, Dennis Gates and Mizzou, prioritized Aiden Shaw. Like, we see that a little bit more. And it starts to level the playing field. And outside of Michigan State or Duke's or, North Carolina's and things like that, and Baylor will throw them in there because, they've won a national title.
Sure.
And there aren't many teams outside of those big ones that you go, all right, well, KU and this team, talent for talent, it's sort of the same. But I see that with Mizzou, and I see that with Iowa State, and, we'll see the rest of the way. But the SEC has
K-State tried. K-State, they tried.
They tried, but
they missed, but they tried. With Coleman Hawkins, that was huge.
And here's the thing. They tried and they missed with different players before Coleman Hawkins.
Sure.
Which then meant you got a little desperate, and it felt like it was 2 o'clock, the bar was closing, and you're sort of just looking around going, anybody else here?
It was like when Alan Crabb, if anyone remembers Alan Crabb, this is even funnier. In the NBA, remember when contracts were getting crazy in the NBA, and Alan Crabb got like a $72 million contract? So when they got a $72 million contract for Alan Crabb, that's when I go, okay, teams are getting desperate. He's not a $72 million player, over 4 years. I don't know if Coleman Hawkins.
No, he's not. But he was who was out there. And who was out there left, and other teams saying he's all that's left that's out there.
Yeah.
We need somebody, so we have to then pay more for that particular person. You don't want to get into that spot. But if you're, Coleman Hawkins, you do. And not to just call – it's not to call out him at all. Other
good for him to get the money.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
But it's recognizing the players that you want, prioritizing, and then landing them. You still have to go and recruit them. You still have to go and land them to be able to do that, and then putting that team together that will mesh. Because again, Cal is a talent collector, and early on at Kentucky, he could build teams around that talent because he could pick out whoever.
Yeah.
It was like top 10, 15 players. I want that point guard. I want that power forward. I'm going to take that center. This guy will fit in good here. I'll take him because it was the pick of the litter, right? Now it's the pick of who wants to also play for you, and then I got to figure out how to make it work.
And also, he would have guys that wouldn't go to the NBA and would stick around, and he didn't have to re-recruit those guys. He didn't have to say, okay, I have to keep these guys from going somewhere else next year. He already had those guys like the Harrison twins.
Well, they won the national title. Terrence Jones was a sophomore.
Yeah.
Deron Lamb was a sophomore. Darius Miller was a senior.
Yeah.
They had those guys. People talk about Anthony Davis and MKG and Marquise Teague that were there.
I forgot about MKG. He was so fun.
We talk about that. Yeah, MKG was the one that people forget about it in that national
Michael Kidd
championship.
Gilchrist.
He was the one guy we couldn't account. We could kind of account for Anthony Davis. We kind of make that work, but when we did that, we left Kidd Gilchrist.
The worst
MKG
jump shot of all time.
But
terrible. Him and Tree Rollins back in the day.
But when in that national championship game, when KU made their run and they got close, it was back-to-back plays by MKG that sort of retook control for UK. And it was like, all right, it's when NBA players are out there and lottery picks are out there, it's like, okay, that's what they're doing. But in that starting lineup, you had sophomore, senior. In that we think of one and dones, right? One and dones, Cal one and done. Sophomore, senior when they won the national championship. Well, senior was the sixth man because it was freshman Marquise Teague running the point, who, by the way, defensively set the tone pretty early. Jeff Teague's little brother, and then MKG and Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis was the most outstanding player and only scored like 10 points in the game because defensively and what he was doing there was just different. But that was building an overall team, making it work, making it mesh. And in the NIL transfer portal era, it's a little bit like one and done because you're getting guys for a year here and there. They're older, more experienced, but you're bringing them in and you've got to make it work and make it connect. And that is easier said than done. And maybe the reality of NIL and transfer portal will be closer to Mizzou than it will be to some of the other teams that can consistently do it. Where Mizzou, you bring in the guys from Cleveland State, Kobe's already there, and you go and win a game in the tournament. And then you got to re-recruit everybody and reload, and you have a couple of injuries to guys who you thought you were going to rely on in Tanji and Grill, and those guys don't play, and you have a disaster. And then you got to reload and re-recruit, and now you've got it all fitting together this year. Maybe next year it could be a disaster again. I don't know. But I don't know if – I would guess that we're probably closer to what the middle of the pack is being Mizzou in the up and down sort of ebbs and flows rather than you've built this baseline and now you can just continue to build off of that and off of that and off of that. In the transfer portal and NIL, you're going to have a year where it just doesn't fit. And Cal had that with the one-and-done eras. 2013, they didn't make the tournament. They lost the first-round game in the NIT. Nerlens Noel blowing out his knee in Florida hurt, but he wasn't the only player on that team. It just didn't fit. It didn't work. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Got some sad news to pass along in the sports world, but we'll take a timeout, come back. More Zone next. That's where I got to know Bob Uecker, not listening to the Brewers broadcasts from 1971 till now, but the Ford C. Frick Award winner, Baseball Hall of Famer back in 2003, just one of the absolute true baseball legends. Bob Uecker has passed away at the age of 90, and the last time we played a funny little Bob Uecker liner was late September. The Milwaukee Brewers clinched the playoffs by winning the division, and in their clubhouse celebrating, we hear Bob Uecker in the background with the celebration.
What an example for us to be with every single day. Bob Uecker. No doubt about it.
I peed my pants. Said, I peed my pants. Just had to be just a treat and a gem to be around constantly there. And they win the division, and that's who they celebrate. They don't start popping the champagne.
Massive celebration,
yes.
too. Massive pop from as soon as they said it
right.
and started celebrating. And what an example of us to be around every single day. Just shows you what kind of person he was.
Absolutely. And we got to know him with Major League a lot, too, in some of his great lines.
Just a reminder, fans, about Die Hard Night coming up here at the stadium. Free admission to anyone who was actually alive the last time the Indians won a pennant.
And there were so many amazing lines from him in that movie. That's
all still we got. One hit.
You can't say here.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Post-game show brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. To hell with it. There's some good stuff. And that one's hit to left field, and he's going to need a rocket up his ass if he's going to catch that one. Oh, just some great stuff from Bob Uecker, and an absolute true baseball legend. 90 years old, Bob Uecker, 2003 Baseball Hall of Famer. 1971 started doing the play-by-play of the Milwaukee Brewers. So sad news, but man, what a life well lived. What an amazing life for Bob Uecker. Guess I'm in the front row, as it says on that statue in front of the stadium for Bob Uecker.
Use that line anytime I'm being moved from my seat for any reason of any place.
That's right.
It could be a movie theater, any place.
Yeah. So how many play-by-play announcers have a statue outside of the stadium for the baseball team that they do play-by-play for? Bob does. Little nugget to pass along. MLB Pipeline putting out their daily lists of their top 10 at every position for baseball prospects entering 2025. Yesterday, they had their top 10 catching prospects. Blake Mitchell came in at number 6. Top 10 first base prospects. You want to guess who's number 1? Top 10 first baseman prospects in all of baseball.
Jack Tani.
Jackie Jack, baby.
Jack Caglianone. The G silent. Caglianone. Jake Caglianone. Yeah, Jack Tani, number 1 in all of baseball in the first base prospects. Top 10, number 1. Royals, Jack Caglianone. Yesterday, Blake Mitchell, number 6 in all of baseball and catching prospects in the minor leagues. So, little nugget. They just put that out there. MLB Pipeline did. Jim Callis with their today. It's catchers. Tomorrow will be today. First baseman, tomorrow second base, and third base and shortstop, and on and on and on. You get the point until they release on January 24th.
Middle relievers, yeah.
Their overall top
Middle
100.
relievers,
That's
baby.
right. Speaking of one of the top prospects in all of Kansas City sports media, it's Kent Swanson. Man, he has had so much promise for so many years, and I think we're just starting to realize and see the things that he can do. He shows flashes from time to time. Kent, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
This is going a lot better than my baseball career. I'll just say that. I will say, if he goes on a heater, I think we should say he's Jack Cagley on one.
I like it, man. Yeah, he's on one right now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on a heater. When he's on a heater, it's Jack Cagley on one.
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that. I've yet to hear Brian Haney take my advice on Flory when he dunks it to say KU's got a badunga dunk. Haven't heard it one time. Not one time.
Jason.
Look at that badunga dunk on KU.
Didn't we close last time we spoke on some bad dad jokes, and now we're just
What are you talking about?
We did back into it.
No,
right
we did
away.
bad ones then. These are really good. These are high level. These come on, man. We've been crowdsourcing these for a while. I mean, this is really good. Kent Swanson, KC Laboratory Podcast, KCSN. You know what? Let me just get temperature check. How you feeling 52 and a half hours before this thing kicks off?
I'm feeling a lot hotter than what the temperature is going to be on Saturday, man.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
No, I'm really excited about this. I don't know if you felt it the same way I have, but when like the regular season feels so like a formality when you've seen this team win 2 Super Bowls in the last 2 years, and all of this just kind of the vibe is a little different during the regular season than it is in the postseason. And like yesterday when we were doing our game preview show for this game over at KC Sports Network, I finally started to feel like a little bit of that adrenaline that you're kind of used to, right? We've become so numb to all these incredible things that this football team has done for this area, for this region, for this city the last few years, and it's hard not to appreciate it. But 15 and this is a team that just went 15-1 with their starters, but. It feels different now, and the energy, the vibe, the heat is on, as Glenn Fry said.
Yeah, Glenn Fry in the house there with that one. And it won't be on Saturday. But you mentioned sort of the regular season formality, and I thought it was interesting. Travis Kelce was on the Stephen A. Smith show yesterday, and I didn't cut this clip. I cut the clip of him talking about retirement and how he's not even thinking about that. He's thinking about records and everything, and he can't imagine, not, playing all that stuff, the things that we've heard before. So I cut that clip just to play at some point. But there was a clip in there that I was planning on cutting, but I clearly forgot as you brought this up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I was going to cut that clip too. But he said at some point in the interview that it's been tough this year, Kent, because he's just wanted to fast forward through the regular season. And he's like, you can't do that. You got to focus. But, man, just wanting to fast forward to get to now. And it kind of, they've won these close games, but there is an element of, hey, let's do what we have to do. Now let's move on. Oh, crap, now it's a one-score game. Now we've got to, try to find a way to win this game, even though it's felt like, some of those one-score games, they had double-digit leads in the fourth quarter, and the other team comes back. I thought it was interesting to hear Travis Kelce actually verbalize it and say it's been tough because we've been just wanting to fast forward through the regular season. You can't do that, but now we're here.
I think that's part of the problem of chasing a three-peat. Honestly, like I think it's probably a big challenge to navigate those emotions if you are a team that is in pursuit of that three-peat, because you've been in so many high-leverage situations over the course of the last few years, and you've found success in those high-level moments, and you've climbed that mountaintop, and then having to start from scratch all over again, I think probably is a challenge. Mm-hmm. But what I think makes this so fascinating to me is how many football games this team has won, regardless of that mentality, regardless of that feeling, regardless of, all of that. They've won a ton of football games, and they're the best team in the league, and they haven't even played their best football yet, right? So I think it speaks to, why this is different than other teams' pursuits of the three-peat, why this team is built different. And I think it starts with guys, like Travis, Mahomes, those guys, I think they've got the right mentality around all this. And I think it's showing that. And I think you're going to see something pretty special on Saturday.
I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and I still am, I would love to know what the actual breakdown would be. It'd be in a different universe. We wouldn't be able to know it. But last year when Travis Kelce had the great run through the playoffs, and especially when you compare that to what his final 3 games of the regular season were before he sat that last game, and so much of it was, hey, look what a rested Travis Kelce looks like. This guy is rested. This guy is refreshed. This guy's got his legs back, and now you see him going out and playing like that. But I'm not sure. I think it was so much of the conversation last year because of how they were playing, and then all of a sudden they were playing differently in the regular season, that I think there's, as much the rest part, but also Travis Kelce, when it's playoff time, is also a different player just in general. So even if the Chiefs maybe had to play that final game and Travis Kelce going out in there and playing, I'm not saying he would have, put up the same numbers, but I would guess that his numbers would be closer to what they were in the playoffs than what they were in the regular season, because I do think there's an element of we just need to do what we need to do to get through this, and now it's reputation, now it's historical, now it's what you are going to be remembered by. Legacies are built in this time of the year, and Kelce goes out there in a 4-game stretch and has what would equal to over 17 games, 140 catches and 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns in those 4 games. How much do you think it was like, hey, he's rested again, but also like, no, it's different. When it's this time, it's go time, and they all just raised their game another level, he and Patrick Mahomes.
I think some of Travis's comments about the playoffs, I think they can all mean different things for different players at different stages in their career, right? Because I do think there's probably a level of satisfaction statistically with what Travis Kelce has done over the course of his career, and I don't think there's a ton that he's really chasing when it comes to some of those individual accolades. And for him specifically, I think it is all just about that postseason, and he is that's pretty, I remember, 10 years ago, there was concern about hey, Travis Kelce's knee going to hold up? There's some degenerative issues and all that kind of stuff back in the day. And it's a ticking time. And he's barely missed any games, but this guy's done everything that you can statistically, nearly. And now I think for him, it's, he's put himself through a lot physically over the course of his career. And you remember, there's been times in the last couple Super Bowls where he's, you see him at the end just, physically exhausted because he's pushing himself to the limit. Where, I think there's probably always an excitement in Kansas City about, in that building about getting to the playoffs, and there is a process, and you need, these young guys to get better and improve over the course of the year. But I think for a guy like Travis, it can even mean something different, where it's I don't really care. I don't care if I get 400 yards in the regular season. I don't care if, I know I got to go play, but I don't really care what it looks like statistically. I'm here to go play my best football in January. And I think it means something a little different for him. I do think you're going to get the best version of Travis Kelce this year. I do think, and hey, by the way, Jason, do you remember who led the Chiefs in receiving against the Pittsburgh Steelers time we saw all these starters?
Travis Kelce?
8 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown, and a failed
Nailed
dunk
it.
attempt where he barely
right,
got
yes.
over the
That's
goalpost.
right. That was Pittsburgh, yeah.
Hey, look, the carrot at the end of the stick was there. They won
Yeah.
that game. He looked good. I think you're about to see, I think you're going to see a good version of Travis Kelce in the postseason.
Yeah. And by the way, as an update to that, Tony Gonzalez did donate to the 87 and Running Foundation what the equivalent of the fine to the NFL was. So Tony Gonzalez did come through. He didn't pay the fine. Kelsey said, no, don't pay my fine. Give it to the 87 and Running. So Tony Gonzalez wrote a check to 87 and Running for what he said he would pay the fine for Kelsey with the attempted dunk. Getting up there and touching the crossbar, that's fine. Visiting with Kent Swanson, Casey.
It's like when I go to the gym and throw it over the rim, but then grab the rim afterwards.
That's right.
And it makes enough noise to when people aren't looking, damn, that guy just threw it out.
He just threw it. Dang, that's awesome.
Very similar.
Good for him, man. I didn't think he had it in him. Well done. Do you like the matchup? It seems like it's kind of a consensus universal that a lot of people do with Houston. Houston was the second team that I liked the matchup the most with out of the 4 they could have played. It was Pittsburgh and then Houston. I love the matchup. What do you think of this for the Chiefs? Do you like the matchup as how these two teams will come together from what we saw a month ago versus what we kind of expect will be different?
Yeah, I do like the matchup for this team. I mean, you're right. I think other than Pittsburgh, this is I think the best case scenario for this team as far as, who you want to line up against the playoffs. Although I want to make sure I'm very clear here. I was not remotely scared of Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos.
Sure.
You sure about
Are you
that?
sure?
You sure about that? Because that matchup, boy, they really like that one. You could
man.
Yeah, if you could just do that.
Them and the SEC in their hypothetical games that don't happen. I think Denver and Bama should play.
Yes.
Is what should happen. But
and the Bengals and Ole Miss, Cincinnati and Ole Miss can play.
Yeah. I think I'd take Ole Miss in. I think I'd put Ole Miss in that one. So, but yeah, no, I feel good about this. I feel good about this matchup for the team. Especially I think that the Chiefs are starting to peak at the right time. I think you saw them put together a really good game plan. They had great answers against man coverage, which is the Texans try to play a lot of that in that game. But even if they don't, they go play a two high structure. I feel good about what this team has developed over the last month, trying to figure out how to beat certain coverages, how to use this personnel well. Get the ball out of the hands of Mahomes offensively. And then defensively, I think, the band's all together. Jalen Watson's anticipated that Jalen Watson will be playing and playing a lot of football in this game for the Chiefs. And if that's the case, him, Charles Omenihu, Chris Jones back, everyone's back together for the first time. And you remember how good that defense looked when Jalen Watson was on the field. And now you got Charles Omenihu in the mix too. There's a lot to like there. Feels good. I feel good about the Chiefs matching up against the Texans, and I also feel good about where this team is at.
It is maybe the first game. Not even maybe, it will be. It'll be the first game that'll be as close to, if Jalen Watson plays, and we'll see how well he plays if he plays. I think he'll be out there, oddly enough. We'll see how much he plays. But it'll be the first game this year that the Chiefs will start a game with what they kind of envisioned they would have in week 1. Against the Ravens with the offensive skill position players. Left tackle, obviously a little bit different. Kingsley was there, and they thought they were going to get more from Kingsley or Wanya if need be, but I'm hoping Joe Tooney will be out there. And if he is, with Hollywood and Xavier, obviously no Rashee Rice that's there, but Hopkins is a version of Rashee Rice. And then the defense with Jalen Watson out there and Charles Omenihu out there. Those guys hadn't played together this year. This will be the most healthy the Chiefs would be all year, only missing, essentially Rashee Rice on that of their, starting 22 that's there if Jalen Watson plays. And that's just a completely different level than what we're seeing from other teams, especially with the Houston Texans missing their, starting guard who played against the Chiefs, got injured in that game against the Chiefs, did Shaq Mason, and missing Tank Dell. And Robert Woods has not practiced this week. He's got the hip injury. He played a good portion of the game against the Chargers, but DNP the last 2 days, and Robert Woods returned kicks, returned punts for them. He had the second most number of snaps in that game because Tank Dell ended up leaving the game. It would have been Nico and then Tank Dell and then Robert Woods. So then it will be Nico and Hutchinson would be the wide receivers that will be out there if Robert Woods can't go. Like it's and the Chiefs are getting their guys healthy. Like the excitement level is continuing to rise for me just thinking about what the Chiefs had hoped their team would look like. We finally get to see it, and it's coming together in the playoffs. That's just rare.
So, and we can talk about the Texans in a second, but if you look at the Chiefs defense, they are the exact same defense that they had in the AFC Championship game, except for they've got Tershawn Wharton now. They've got Jaden Hicks now. They've got Brian Cook. I think Brian Cook missed that game, if I remember correctly, too, right?
Yeah,
so
but Snead was out there, though.
It's except for
for
L'Jarius Sneed. The only big change, I mean, it was a big one, don't get me wrong, but like they have so much of that championship defense back.
Mm-hmm.
And like that can't be overstated. And they're better in the trenches than they were last year. You know, they've got more horses in the trenches last year, and I mean safety, whatever. I mean, Deion Bush was playing in the AFC Championship game.
That's right.
So man, they got so much talent back, and yeah, I think they're uniquely capable of like they've got a very good matchup, with good interior pass rush against a terrible interior offensive line. You might be able to, you probably should, have Trent McDuffie, chasing Nico Collins around, who is essentially their entire offense right now. They can't run the football. They don't have any dynamic playmakers outside of Nico Collins. It's the Nico Collins show and then just a bunch of dudes.
Yep.
So you got to feel good about this team's ability to take away what the Texans do, and you got to feel good about this team defensively, because I know L'Jarius Sneed's a massive loss. Don't get me wrong, but man, they got so much back from last year, and they're all going to be on the field for the playoff duration.
Yeah, Chris Jones said yesterday, and this stood out to me when he was talking about it, because they were asking about the calf injury and getting some time off, and he said he feels good, and he said, I've got my legs back under me. And that's like, we talk about resting your body from the bumps and the bruises and things like that, but man, the Chiefs, they're going to be rusty, Kent. Yeah, they're also going to have the freshest legs in the playoffs. They will have the freshest legs. Chris Jones saying, yeah, I feel like my legs are back underneath me again. Like going through the full season of, playing as many reps as he played. Like he was on a almost career high pace for snaps this year. Travis Kelce was on almost a career high pace for percentage of snaps this year. And those guys get to take off, the last week of the season and then the first week of the playoffs to get their legs back underneath them. Like we can't talk about Hollywood Brown coming back, and the good part about Hollywood Brown is that he's going to have those fresh legs, and you'll have cornerbacks that have played all year, and Hollywood hasn't got much, hasn't had much tread taken off the tire this year. Well, that's now the same thing for this Chiefs team and that defense. And that defensive line is going to have fresh legs against an offensive line that's been pretty porous this year and is also going to be down their starting guard.
Well, everyone's worried about this rest, for the Chiefs, and that rest really only extends to this one game against the Houston Texans, right? Because after that, you're back to being, weather and all this. This team, I think, is uniquely positioned to handle this 21 or 3+ week break that they've had, because first off, they had an early bye, and I think this team probably needed that rest more than anyone. But also, there's so many players on this team that have been through what this team is about to endure, and there's so many players on this team that know what it takes to play in the playoffs. So you don't have to worry, about the speed of the game as much. You don't have to worry about, matching the intensity that the Houston Texans will bring in this game. And so you get this giant amount, this giant break, this huge break to get everybody rested and ready. But you got that championship DNA to lean back on. And so I think everyone worries about rest and rust, or rest versus rust and all that stuff. Doesn't bother me at all. to be able to have all this time to rest and get ready. And I think that it's going to breed, the best version of themselves when this team lines up on Saturday.
Yeah, I am completely, totally with you on that. The rust thing does not impact me, scare me, bother me in any way, shape, or form. A couple of quick ones. Trent McDuffie, Nico Collins. Do you think he travels with Nico, or that'll be sort of matchup based? That there will be time to time where Trent will just be simply, you've got Nico, and there will be times where maybe it'll be Josh Williams or maybe Jalen Watson there. Or will we see? The original question is Trent McDuffie. Do you think traveling with Nico on Saturday?
I think they're going to mix it up a little bit. I think it'll mix and match. They'll double them some. I think sometimes they'll throw Trent at him. I think you're going to see Trent move a lot more than you have during the regular season. So I think that naturally will breed some opportunities for him to match up with Nico Collins. But I do think they'll try to mix and match some things. But I do think Trent McDuffie will be playing and traveling with Nico a little bit more than we've seen during the season. So I do think, you got a little bit more flexibility back there now.
All right, more carries in this game. Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco?
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I agree.
Unequivocally.
Yep, I agree.
Best running back on the team right now.
I am all over the Kareem Hunt over on this one. I just maybe it doesn't happen, but it just a head scratcher to me that Kareem Hunt at DraftKings 70 or more yards is plus 1,200. Patrick Mahomes 70 or more yards is plus 900. Like, why is Mahomes 70 more yards plus 900 and Kareem Hunt is plus 1,200? Kareem Hunt is way more likely to get 70 or more yards, especially if this is a game where the wind might be a factor and the Chiefs might be wanting to sort of wear down the Houston Texans. And who's going to be one of, if not the most motivated player on the field in a Chiefs uniform on Saturday? I think there's a pretty decent chance it's Kareem Hunt with an opportunity that he has been missing since 2019 when they told him, sorry, dude, you got to go. From that day when they let him go to Saturday has been him waiting for that opportunity. That dude is going to be a freaking dog on Saturday. All right, Kansas City or Houston, who wins the game? And what score?
I'm going Houston. I'm just kidding. The kids, all this talk, and I just do that. No, the Kansas City Chiefs are winning this football game. They're going to win it comfortably. They're going to start fast. I think you're going to look back on this defense and go, uh-oh, this unit's rounding into form at the right time. That Steve Spagnuolo shine is about to hit. Give me 27-13 Chiefs win this football game. And they're hosting the Arrowhead Invitational next weekend.
And last one for you, better matchup for the Chiefs, Baltimore or Buffalo?
Baltimore. It's tight. I think both are going to be a big challenge. I think I'd rather play. I'd rather take my chances with what Lamar does. The Chiefs have always had good answers for him. Yeah. Josh Allen can match blow for blow with Mahomes, and we've seen him do it before, so give me the Ravens as a better matchup for the Chiefs.
All right, we'll see what happens. Kent Swanson, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast. Kent, you are the man. Appreciate it as always, brother. And this interview, you were certainly on one, like Jack Cagley on one for us today. So, thank you, Kent. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, 5-tool player over here. Appreciate you.
Darn right. Kent Swanson leaving with the badunga dunk there at the end. Scott, I'm sorry, Brian Haney. Have you not adopted that yet? Like, I am allowing you to use it. I haven't copyrighted it. I haven't, I'm not trying to get royalties off that, Gurley or, Haney.
Is that why you wear that T-shirt all the time?
Rock, chuck it up. KU's got a badunga dunk. Oh, let me tell you, City. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll hear from Andy Reid coming up at 1 o'clock, a Fast Friday on a Thursday. This is the last week that it will be like this, because if they win on Saturday, the rest of the season games they will play will be on a Sunday. And hopefully they have 3 games remaining on a Sunday. Although their third game out of 3, if they play it, will be much different media schedule. As we are very aware of. We'll see. And certainly we'll weigh in and continue to get people's thoughts on, matchups for the Chiefs if they get past the Houston Texans, whether that be Buffalo or Baltimore. Kent Swanson saying, it's close, but, Baltimore he thinks is a better matchup for the Chiefs.
How about just, let them create a super team. Let them pick. The Chiefs are still going to win.
That's what Kelsey wants. Says, I want to play the best. I want to play the very best at their best so I can be challenged.
Can't see like Deion Dawkins at left tackle, the rest of the Ravens offensive line. You have Derrick Henry and James Cook combo.
What Josh Allen and Lamar in the backfield at the same time. See, I don't want to play that.
Oh, that's pretty.
I don't want to play that. Come on now.
Is it playoff Lamar or is it
Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, and James Cook as a change of pace back? No, thank you.
Somehow the Chiefs still win.
I mean, it's at Arrowhead, and it's an AFC championship game. If they play that, then probably. I have switched over the course of the last month or so that my view was I liked the matchup with Baltimore better than Buffalo for the Chiefs if they played in the AFC championship game. But I have since switched over the last month or so. I would rather the Chiefs play the Buffalo Bills. And I talked about this earlier in the week with Adam Teicher. Now, is Zay Flowers playing or not? I think certainly changes some things. But I've seen the matchup with the Chiefs and Bills on the road, and people have misconstrued what that game was, that they got dominated by the Buffalo Bills in that game. They got beat pretty good in the fourth quarter. They got outscored by 14 in the fourth quarter. Not typically what happens to the Chiefs. They win in that game, went in the fourth quarter up 5. They lost by 9. A couple of touchdowns there. But they were down by 2 with that fourth down play. And there were a lot of other plays along the way. This will then be in Arrowhead. And I think there's an element of Buffalo walking into Arrowhead again. And the ghosts of the past of, can we get over this hurdle? Can we get over this hump? And the Chiefs have been very good against the run, so I understand why it would be, if Baltimore, all they do is run the ball, then the Chiefs have been so good at running the ball that makes sense for a better matchup.
Sure.
But I think the first time these two teams played with Derrick Henry and Lamar and that offensive line, they were still figuring a lot of things out.
Agreed.
And the tight ends have been an issue for the Chiefs this year. And obviously Isaiah Likely, first game of the season. But Andrews and Likely, and with the offensive line playing much better, and Lamar and Derrick Henry and that chemistry that they have at the mesh point and how good they've been this year since week 1. And it took a few weeks for Derrick Henry to get up and running because, I was off season. I was talking about and championing Derrick Henry in fantasy football to everybody that would listen, except for when I thought that people in my fantasy league were listening. I was in love with what Derrick Henry was going to do this year, and I paid money at the auction draft for Derrick Henry. Was the guy I went in wanting. And the first 3 weeks looked kind of foolish. He looked like a 30-year-old running back who didn't have much tread left on the tire. And then they started figuring out more and more how to use him. Then they got more and more comfortable. And then he ends up with almost 2,000 yards rushing.
Last 4 games for Derrick Henry. You want to guess the fewest amount of yards Derrick Henry had from rushing, not from scrimmage, just rushing?
Well, let's see. I was eliminated from the playoffs at that point, so I'm going to guess 350 per game. I think it's like 110 or something like that.
138 is the fewest amount of yards he's had from scrimmage.
How many touchdowns does he have total in those 4 games?
He has
like 7?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 of them. Does he have a receiving touchdown too? Maybe.
No, not in that stretch. He has 2 receiving touchdowns, but not since October.
Just like it's been different, and that's worrisome. And if Zay Flowers plays, then I would not necessarily like that matchup. And Baltimore's defense is different now than what it was the first half of the season. It's a little bit 2019-ish for the Chiefs when it was like, oh, the Chiefs' defense is getting torched. And then you played them in the playoffs, and it's like, oh, wait, the Chiefs' defense is different now. That's Baltimore for me. That's a little
first-year DC
worrisome.
as well.
Yeah, and they've been getting used to it as the brain drain all of the people the coaches that left that Baltimore Ravens defense that went to be DCs or head coaches, that it's taken a while. And they're now playing better. So I would rather the Buffalo Bills win on Sunday night.
And again, take this as you will. Again, I
will.
I think a lot of this will be because it was the first game with Derrick Henry. I think it can also be because the Chiefs' defense is that good against the run. There was only one game this year where Derrick Henry averaged less than not just 4.3 yards per carry, less than 4 yards per carry.
I'm going to take a guess. I know which one.
3.5 yards a carry by a full 0.8.
I know which one. It was the Broncos. Oh, wait, no. The Chiefs, week 1, right?
0.8.
Yeah.
And the only game where he's had didn't bring in a target only 3 times this year. He doesn't have many targets and receptions. But 2 of the 3 incompletions were against the Chiefs.
That's funny.
So just something to keep in mind, too.
And most of the running for the Ravens in that game was Lamar scrambles.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was against the Steelers where Lamar's runs were designed read options that then he kept because Pittsburgh decided that they were going to dare the Ravens and Lamar Jackson to keep the ball and run it himself. It's like, he ain't C.J. Stroud. You're not daring C.J. Stroud to run the football. You're daring the greatest dual-threat quarterback we have ever seen in NFL history to keep the ball and run it. Yeah, I think he's going to do that, Pittsburgh. And yes, the Chiefs will not play it like that. And they're a better run defense than the Steelers.
Derrick Henry might be
better effort too. I mean, have you seen some of the 2nd and 20 is the one I'm thinking of right now, where
some of that video that's out there on Twitter,
not great.
And Buffalo's defense has some spots that there's some leakage, and I just don't think Baltimore's doing that right now. That's the concern. I think Baltimore is a more complete team than Buffalo right now. And if Zay Flowers plays, that changes things.
I would agree.
Zay Flowers is not going to play this weekend.
As far as complete, because the Ravens' defense has played outstanding, while the Bills have been like 31st and 32nd in so many metrics as the season's gone to a conclusion. The issue is, I keep going back to it. I don't trust Lamar in the playoffs.
I know that's a big difference.
And I think the Bills' offense. I'm still taking the Bills' offense over the Ravens because the Ravens are more one-dimensional. Yeah. They still are, with all the talk about their weapons and they're better and all that stuff. Lamar's been outstanding throwing the football. I would love to see them. What happens if they get down 14?
Well, let me throw this at you because
down
it's
10.
like, do you trust Lamar in the playoffs? So you'd rather play Baltimore because you don't trust Lamar in the playoffs.
Correct.
But if the Chiefs are playing Baltimore, that means Lamar went to Buffalo and the Ravens won, so he's going to have to play really well in Buffalo to win that game.
Agreed.
So that would mean back-to-back games for the first time in his career in the playoffs that he would put together stellar performances.
Yeah.
And at that point, you would start to think maybe Lamar's getting more comfortable. Because he even said before the playoffs, and, maybe it's saying this to downplay or give yourself confidence moving forward. Maybe you're trying to convince yourself. Maybe it's just true. But he said, going into some of the playoff games in the past, and last year in the AFC Championship game, he was jittery and was nervous and could feel all of that and what was on the line. And that the focus for him is going to be, yes, it's the playoffs. You got to raise your level, but it's going to be a game of football. And I know how to play football.
Sure.
Let's go play football. And he looked like that against the Steelers of just let me go play.
That's the Steelers in a wild card round.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Playing in Arrowhead for a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
But playing in Buffalo,
it's different.
If he gets by Buffalo, whoever wins this game, the quarterback's going to have a great game.
Correct.
They're going to carry. So whoever the Chiefs are playing, that quarterback went and put on his cape. And it's like the Bengals. Whoever the Bengals were going to play between the Chiefs and the Bills, what ended up being the 13-2 game, they were going to play a team whose quarterback just went ridiculous, and they're going to be playing a more complete team regardless. Bengals ended up beating the Chiefs that next week. I think the same thing here. I already know Josh Allen can play well in the playoffs. We haven't seen Baltimore put it together with a stud defense and Lamar playing like an MVP in the playoffs. If the Chiefs are playing Baltimore next week, I think you're getting Baltimore and Lamar playing like an MVP with the defense they have, because that's what it's going to take to go to Buffalo and win on Sunday night.
I just think what it comes down to for me, I think the Ravens are one of the highest variance teams in the NFL right now, where if they're playing their A game, they can beat anyone. If they play their A game and the Bills play their A game, the Ravens are going to win, right? Mm-hmm. The issue is the Ravens have not played their A game with any sort of consistency. They have towards the end of the season, so I will grant you that. But their variance of the bottom falling out is a lot higher than Buffalo's, in my opinion. Maybe I'm right. I know the Bills' defense and all that stuff. There's a reason why they lost as many games as the Ravens had this season.
Yeah,
we've seen them play games where you go, who is this team? And then they bounce back the following week and they put up 40 points and blow teams out. I don't trust the consistency, especially of the Ravens' offense.
Yeah, I mean, without Zay Flowers, I think that's a factor. They lost at Pittsburgh, scoring only 16 points. They lost at Philadelphia, against Philadelphia at home, scoring only 19 points.
Yeah,
did Baltimore. And then Giants, they put up 35. Pittsburgh, they put up 34. Houston, that was a no-show.
Yeah,
put up 31. Cleveland put up 35. And then Pittsburgh put up 28.
Again, they're on a heater right now. But those other numbers that we've brought up really stand out.
Yeah. And defensively, now, who they have played defensively matters. But I pointed it out, maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, and said, when you look at points scored per game and where the teams rank, the Ravens have played better offenses in this stretch since they've been one of the top defenses in the league than the Chiefs did in 2009 after that Tennessee game, when we were gushing about how different that Chiefs defense was.
Yeah.
And we weren't going, but who have they played? Look at the other team's offenses. It was because it was different. It was like they're not getting, that's the point. They're shutting down other teams' offenses that they should shut down. They weren't doing that earlier. And Baltimore's doing that now. So it is interesting of Baltimore's better, but look who they're playing. We didn't do that in 2019. We just embraced the fact that the Chiefs looked different. Baltimore looks different. I'm not afraid of any team, but if you, just as it's rank your matchups, Houston, Pittsburgh, Chargers, Denver, whatever. I ranked it Pittsburgh, Houston, LA, and then Denver. Not afraid of the Broncos. I would just prefer not to play a divisional game and a team that has the defense that the Broncos have, et cetera. I certainly don't think the Broncos coming in would be a team that would be the favorite or a team that should look in the mirror and say, we're going to win this game. We're the better team. You're playing the Chiefs. Chiefs in the playoffs are a different animal than what you play in the regular season.
And
a lot of teams
do they know Patrick Mahomes is going to play? Does Sean Payton know that?
Probably. Ask the Buffalo Bills about regular season versus playoff Chiefs. Because the Bills keep getting these regular season wins and they keep hanging those banners. But they've yet to hang an actual banner. Because playoff Chiefs is different than regular season Chiefs.
I can't wait for Dylan, who loves Sean Payton, to get his thoughts on Sean Payton.
We're going to hear from that after Matt Verderame, but we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Matt Verderame join us at noon. We got one more segment coming up next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. We will talk with Matt Verderam coming up in the top of the noon hour. Top of the morning to you. Little news out of Houston, by the way. So I mentioned with Kent Swanson
Do they have a problem?
No, they don't.
Okay.
But you're not in Kansas anymore. The Houston Texans, I mentioned this with Kent Swanson, that Robert Woods logged a couple of DNPs the last 2 days with a hip. Looking at video, it doesn't look like he's stressed out with the other wide receivers today. That would be a third DNP this week with a hip injury for Robert Woods.
So you're saying Houston does have a problem?
Also, this is certainly something to keep an eye on and think about, because we're talking about what I believe makes the entire Houston Texans offense go. I've talked about this a lot this year in Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon did not have an injury status on Tuesday. Joe Mixon, Wednesday, had an injury status of a limited participant. Today is not practicing.
Ooh.
Now, unless this thing is such a bad ankle injury that you have to just keep him from walking, I can't imagine Joe Mixon missing the game on Saturday. But how many times have we talked about this? When you see somebody without an injury designation and then a limited, and then it means they got injured in practice.
Yeah.
Yesterday's practice is the one that's going to be more up-tempo. That first practice going through some things. That what is typically a Wednesday practice is when you get a little bit more intense, and then that Friday practice is more of a walkthrough, which is kind of what today is. That Thursday, but it's a Friday practice. So that Thursday practice a little bit more. But that was Joe Mixon getting injured in practice on Wednesday, limited participant, and he is not practicing today with the Houston Texans. Robert Woods also not practicing again for the third day in a row for the Houston Texans.
Also got to get that thing to 30,000 feet elevation as well, so if it swells up even more on it's not like it's not a home game. They got to get on a plane and come to Kansas City and also change the weather by almost like 30 to 40 degrees.
Drive.
I'd be surprised.
Jordan Poyer did it in the past.
I just can't imagine Joe Mixon not being out there.
Yeah.
But even if he's out there, if he hurt his ankle yesterday in practice and doesn't practice 48 hours before you play a game, is he going to be 100% and be Joe Mixon on that ankle? Now, we've seen Mahomes be Mahomes on that ankle, but he's a quarterback, not a running back. We'll talk with Matt Verderam about this development next. In WHB, Jason Anderson with you. We will hear from Andy Reid coming up an hour from now, and whichever players they put at the podium as well. Right now, let's talk with Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated and the football show on KCSN, the Matt Verderam Show. He joins us here in the zone. Matt, what's up, brother? How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We are doing just fine. I do want to start with this latest development out of Houston. I don't know what to make of it, and I think it would probably take something pretty big to keep Joe Mixon from playing, but Joe Mixon was not on the injury report on Tuesday, popped up yesterday with an ankle injury and was limited, and today he is not practicing in Houston. What do you make of this latest development with Joe Mixon, an ankle injury, and logging a DNP in the final practice of the week for the Texans after being limited yesterday with an ankle?
It's not great. Look, will he play? I don't know. I would assume probably, but it's also one of those things when he's a running back with an ankle injury.
Right.
Like it's not like you can really hide that. If he really can't cut on it, or he's really limited, he's going to be severely compromised. Now, look, maybe the Texans are just backing off of it for a day, and they're saying, look, you know what, with some treatment and rest, like, he'll be fine. That's completely in play. But it's never a good thing if a guy goes from being fully practicing to limited in practice to not practicing. I mean, that typically would tell you that there's at least something that is, of concern going on.
Typically, that would mean, Matt, you've covered the NFL for a long time, have been around these practices. Wouldn't that typically mean that he got injured in practice if he was not on the injury report and then limited yesterday?
Yes, and typically, by the way, in like a normal week, a guy going from a full to a limited to a DNP probably wouldn't play.
Wouldn't play, right? But this isn't normal.
This isn't normal. But now the question is raised. Look, the Texans are not one of these teams that has a two-back system. Like, if you look at this year, he's almost taken every carry they've had.
Yep.
So if he's not out there or he's really limited, it completely changes the way they can play. And by the way, he missed a month earlier this year with an ankle injury.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a great point. That ankle injury. I knew he'd missed a month, but didn't even think about the ankle part of it.
You just look. You don't know. You're not. They might have been managing that thing all year, and maybe it's not. Who knows? It could be a different ankle.
Right.
It could be the other ankle. But it's something where, if let's put it this way. If Isaiah Pacheco popped up with this injury and then had this progression of practices, if you're looking at it from a Chiefs perspective, that's not great. I think that's probably the same is true the other way.
Yeah. Matt Verderam is our guest from Sports Illustrated. What do you think of the matchup that the Chiefs have with the Houston Texans? And sort of a two-parter, how you think the Chiefs are coming together right now in what they look like entering the playoffs. Oddly enough, not many teams enter the playoffs feeling like they're the healthiest they've been all year, but that seems to be the case with the Chiefs.
And that's kind of been a thing with them over the years, where you think back to 2019, it feels like a lifetime ago, but they were really beat up that year. And then they kind of got healthy right before the playoffs and won it all. I mean, now of course, in 2022, they were pretty healthy, and then Holmes got hurt immediately in the playoffs and things changed. But I think for the Chiefs, as far as going into the playoffs, you feel really good. You've had almost a month's worth of rest. This is the first game we're going to see all year long with the men who and Watson playing together. This is the first time all season these two guys have been in the field at the same time. Other than Rashee Rice, they're healthy. They have everybody. So there's no excuses in that regard. They're certainly the healthier team going into this game, even Mixon notwithstanding. And so, I think you feel very good. Their offense has looked very good since Marquise Brown has come back. As far as the matchup, look, this is going to sound like I'm denigrating the Texans, and I'm not. They deserve to be where they are. They have some talent on this team. They are well coached. This is also, of the four games this weekend, in my opinion, this is the game that I just cannot see the favorite losing. Unless the Chiefs just play a calamity of a game. I could see them not covering the spread. I could see this game being closer than people think. But, I just think the Texans are so limited on offense outside of Collins. And the Chiefs are so good defensively, especially with Watson back and a minute. I think the Chiefs would have to turn the ball over multiple times, take a bunch of penalties, miss assignments, blow a coverage, give up a touchdown on special teams or on defense. I don't see a world where we walk out of this going, the Chiefs played a pretty good game, and they lost.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's going to be A versus C, right? Houston plays an A game, Chiefs play a C game, and then Houston walks out of Arrowhead with a win. Anything other than that, if the Chiefs play a B game, they win. If the Chiefs play an A game, then they win. And
they win going away.
Win going away, right? And by the way, Matt, it would be, as much as we've talked about the Chiefs playing close games this year, not covering the spread, they are their last 6 games are 6-0 against the spread. Chiefs are.
Are they really?
Yeah, 6-0 against the spread.
I didn't realize it. That's actually somewhat stunning. But okay,
in the playoffs. So the last 6 games they played in the playoffs, they have covered the spread as well. This is now 8.5. I've got them covering the spread as well. I'll get your prediction here in just a little bit. How much is weather a factor? I mean, we talk about Houston being a dome team, and they play down in Houston. Last year they played in the divisional round in Baltimore, and it was like 30 degrees, I think, and they didn't play very well in that game. This is going to be in the teens, and Charles Omenihu said yesterday, it's going to be warm because of that Miami game last year. It's like, it's going to be in the teens, 20 degrees? Oh, that's going to be warm out there. There's no issue whatsoever with us and the weather, but gusts of up to 30 miles an hour, north winds, for a Chiefs team that's sort of used to it, has played in these elements, Houston not necessarily. Do you think the weather will be a factor in this game that could also maybe benefit on the Chiefs side?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, there's a long track record of warm weather teams going to cold weather stadiums in January and losing. It's just, I think the biggest reason is, look, guys obviously, they're not all from Houston, Texas. Like, they've played all over the place. But when you're used to playing indoors or in warm weather, the ball's different. The ball's a little softer. You can grip the ball a little bit better. When it's that cold and your hands are that cold, the ball's a little slicker. It's a little harder to grip. Ball's going to sail on you sometimes. I don't think it was a coincidence that when Tua got picked off in that game in January last year, he sailed it. It was high. Like that a lot of times you can't grip the ball quite as well. Mahomes, they've practiced outdoors all week. There's a reason. Mm-hmm. Like they're preparing for this game. He's played in negative 25 with the wind chill. For them, to Meadows' point, it's balmy. They're going to be, okay, we play it all the time. Look, does it mean the Texans can't go in there and win? No. I also think, though, when you're not used to that, there's a certain level of you're thinking about it during the game. You're on the sideline, and maybe when you're making adjustments, you're not as focused because, God, I'm cold. When is it halftime? I want to get inside. Where's a heater? Can I get anywhere near a heater? The Chiefs aren't going to be worried about it. They're used to it, and so and they will look internally at it as an advantage. So do I think it swings the whole game? No, but I certainly don't think it hurts them.
Yeah, I think I was listening to Charles Omenihu yesterday, and Todd Leba was out there and talked to Omenihu, and he said he was looking back to that 2019 game in the divisional round where obviously the Chiefs made that crazy comeback. And what he said was pretty funny. And he said he remembers it being cold that day. And he said when we were up 24-0, it was pretty warm on the sideline. He said it wasn't really cold. And he said a few minutes later, the Chiefs were up 28-24, and we could feel the cold. He's like, all of a sudden, I just remember the second half, how cold it was, and could feel it. He goes, but I don't remember feeling cold in the first half. I thought that stood out to me because it's like, last year was awful against the Miami Dolphins. Like, that weather is terrible. Nobody is warm in that weather.
Right.
But it did look like one team felt the cold more than the other on the field. And that stood out. That just really stood out to me to hearing Charles Omenihu say that when things were going well, the weather wasn't really that. When they started going the other way, all of a sudden on the sideline, they could feel the weather, how cold it was, and hitting got a little bit tougher, and it got a little bit more difficult to make that contact because the cold weather's in your mind.
There was a game this year on Thanksgiving night. Miami went up and played Green Bay, and it wasn't that cold. Like by Green Bay standards, It wasn't that cold. It was like 25 degrees. And Melissa Stark was doing the sideline reporting, and I'm paraphrasing a little. Apologies to Melissa, but I remember at the very beginning of the game, they showed Mike McDaniel. He's bundled up to the hilt, right? Like he's dressed like it's the Arctic.
That's right, yeah.
And then they show Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is in like a vest, and she was saying how the Dolphins had packed something like 3,500 pounds of cold weather gear for the game. And I just remember thinking, like, this game's over. Like, I don't even need to watch this game to know who's going to win this game because the Dolphins, that is such a thought on their mind going into the game that I guarantee the Packers haven't even thought about. They're like, yeah, listen, just throw some thermals on and you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that is a factor. Like, you know, I remember watching that playoff game. I was actually supposed to cover it, but I couldn't get there because of the weather. And I remember, you know, just watching the opening, the first 5 to 10 minutes of the Miami game and thinking, the Dolphins don't even want to be there.
Right.
Like, just looking at them, you're like, this game's toast. They all they want to do is get inside. And I think, look, this isn't that. But I'm sure there are going to be some guys on Houston who are, this is the coldest game they've ever played in. And there's going to be an element of, man, I am freezing.
Mm-hmm.
Get me out of here. And I think psychologically it does play some role.
Yeah, I looked back in that divisional round game in 2019. The temperature at kickoff was 29 degrees. And Aminu says he remembers it being cold. So,
right.
And now he's saying, 20 degrees and mid-teens here? Oh, this is going to be nothing this year. No big deal here in Kansas City with it being 15 to 20 degrees and wind chills, down in the single digits. No big deal whatsoever. We've been through that. It's all good. But he remembers it being cold when it was mid-20s 2019 when the Chiefs were on that crazy run of 31-0. Or the 51-7 run that they went on.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, you're the Chiefs. You're sitting there going, I hope it's frigid.
Heck yeah.
I mean, you want it to be cold. Now,
yep.
I don't know that you want it to be windy. You want, but Mahomes has such a strong arm. I don't know that it's.
And he's used to playing it. And he's used to playing in Kansas City.
Right. I mean, you're going to cut. Plus, with the Chiefs, it's not like they're going to air out a bunch of deep. I mean, if you're throwing the ball 10 yards, I don't think it really matters. Now, if you're trying to throw the ball 50 yards down the field, that's when it matters.
Yep, I agree.
Because all of a sudden you have a gust, and I'll tell you one thing that's going to be interesting. It's going to make it harder to kick the ball.
Yep.
That for both. And by the way, Fairbairn is a very good kicker. He's got a huge leg. For those unaware, that's going to make this thing interesting. Like, if you have a 4th and 4 at the 35-yard line, you going to kick it?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Probably not going to kick it. You're probably going to go for it. So that is where I think, in terms of just an on-field schematic, like you're probably not going to throw the ball as deep down the field as you normally would, and you're probably not going to kick the ball from, let's say 50 plus, unless you absolutely have to. And so that does change some things.
Matt Verderame is our guest from Sports Illustrated. The left tackle spot has been much talked about, much debated. Joe Thuney, Caliendo is the matchup, or the combination left tackle, left guard, or DJ Humphries and Joe Thuney, left tackle, left guard. Matt, what are you going with, and what do you think the Chiefs will go with on Saturday against the Texans?
I don't have a problem with them going either way, for the record, but if Andy Reid made a terrible decision and called me up and said, "Hey Matt, what do you think?" So I'm not waiting for that call. But if I get that call, I would say, "Look, I would, as long as they feel he's 100%, he's got to be 100%. I would play Humphries at left tackle, because if that to me is the best case scenario. If he plays well, the interior is the best interior in the NFL. And then, okay, look, you've got Juwan Taylor. And Juwan Taylor, while he drives everybody crazy with some of the things that he does, to be fair to Juwan Taylor, very rarely does he have a game where you're like, man, he's just getting torched. Like, he'll take penalties. He'll be 8 yards off the line of scrimmage at the snap of the ball. But you don't really watch him and go, man, he is just getting smoked. So I think they'd be able to hold up, and I think they'd be able to block. And listen, there's also the other side of this, too. Like, if you play Humphries to start the game, he's not playing well, you can bench him. You can slide Thuney out and put Caliendo in the game. Like, it's not like they can't do it. They did it that way when they played Houston last time. So I would play Humphries, because you don't need Humphries to be Willie Roaf. You need him to be Donovan Smith. And he's that. It's the best offensive line you had all year long. So I would play him. My guess is that's what they'll do. But I also think there's going to be a little bit of a quick hook here. If he goes out and 2 series in, he's having issues, I think they'll make a move. But I will add to it this thought as well. Look, if you're the Chiefs, you're probably going with a fairly quick passing game. Mm-hmm. And if I'm Andy Reid, my number one priority in this game is I am not letting those edge rushers beat me. However they want to do it. If they want to RPO them to death, if they want to chip, if they want to go spread and throw quickly, like whatever it is, I'm not letting Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. blow this game up. I'm not. And if they can beat me with those two guys being non-factors, then all the credit in the world to them. But I think for Kansas City, your entire game plan has to be they are not going to beat us in this game. And if anybody else can do it, kudos to them.
And they against Houston, it was the second quickest time to throw, second fewest seconds to throw the ball from snap.
Yep.
And that was against a team that has good edge rushers, and that was the game plan: get the ball out quick and go. I don't think Andy Reid's going to call you to get the, and I don't think he's going to call me. But I would say that whatever Andy thinks and Matt Nagy thinks, I would defer to one man in the building. And if I'm Andy Reid, Patrick, what do you want?
Yep.
And that's my decision. Who do you feel most comfortable with, Patrick? And that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, because he's got to feel comfortable. That's, I mean, Andy's not sitting in the pocket, right? Neither is Nagy. So I agree with you. If nothing else, you've got to have a long discussion with him. And look, if Mahomes walks into Andy's office and says, "I want Joe Thuney as my left tackle," then he's your left tackle.
Then he's your left tackle, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't. To me, listen. Obviously, at this point, Mahomes has earned that.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes has earned the ability to go, Andy. I respect how you feel, but this is how I feel, and I'm the quarterback, and I need to feel confident in this. I went back. I watched the film this week of the Texans game when they played him, and Caliendo was fine for the most part. They ran a couple games, some blitzes. They got him a few times. I mean, that's something they're going to have to adjust for if Caliendo starts. But Caliendo, to his credit, has not been bad. It's not like you've watched them and gone, "Oh my God, he's been a sieve." And he's been in there too against Pittsburgh and Houston, some really good players inside as well, and he's held his own. Look, I think if you're the Chiefs in this game, you just have to go in offensively with the mentality of, look, we do not have to score 35 points in this game. We have to take care of the ball. We have to be efficient when we have it. If they get to 23, 24 points this game, they're probably going to win. I mean, unless the defense really just has an uncharacteristic showing. Because I don't know. Let's assume Mixon plays and he's 100%. What are they going to do if the Chiefs limit Collins? I just don't know where they go in this game. They just simply don't have the horses, especially with Watson back. I just think if you're on offense, you're like, look, man, if we've got to play somewhat conservatively and win this game 23-16, that's fine. We can do. Who cares? It's the playoffs. Just win the game.
Yep. Matt Verderam's our guest. Who do you think wins, Chiefs or Houston? And I know who you think wins, but do you have a final score in mind for Saturday?
Yeah, I think Kansas City wins the game. I mean, I'm headed out there tomorrow for the game. I'm covering it for SI. I think it's 27-16, and I think if the Chiefs really had to beat them by more than that, they could do it. I think it's the kind of game that it's never really a blowout, but you also really never feel like they're going to lose. It's just kind of like they're up by 7-14 most of the way, and they just kind of cruise control it. I just, in the end, I don't think the Texans can score enough if the Chiefs don't hand them points. I don't think they can generate enough offense because I think Spagnuolo is going to say, look, we're going to do whatever we have to do to take Collins out of the game, and we're going to put enough guys in the box that Mixon's not going nuts. And I don't know what else they do. Yep. I don't know where else they turn to. I think the Chiefs will win. I think they will win, somewhat comfortably.
And then last one for you, getting everybody's thoughts on this. It's might come down to sort of just some smaller, razor-thin margins, but who do you think would be a better matchup for the Chiefs, the Ravens or the Bills?
I think the Ravens are the better team. I also think the Ravens are the better matchup for Kansas City. Because, first of all, who knows if Zay Flowers will play this weekend or if they advance next weekend. And even if he does, again, I think the Chiefs will look at it and go, okay, McDuffie is going to go on Flowers, and we're going to put 1 million guys up front, and they're not going to run the ball. I think the Bills are tougher in the sense they can throw to 5 different guys on any play. And the Ravens have excellent, tight ends and all that. I think the Chiefs have had a ton of success against Baltimore for a reason over the last handful of years. I think Kansas City, I'll be honest with you, I think Kansas City, if they play their best games, beat either one of them.
Yeah.
But I think Baltimore, they just had their, sometimes styles make fights. They just had Lamar's number. They have given them all kinds of problems over the years.
Yeah. Yep. Matt Verderam, Sports Illustrated, Matt Verderam Show, KCSN Football Show. Matt, you're the man. Appreciate it. Enjoy the game on Saturday, and we'll catch up soon, brother.
Sounds good. Take care.
Absolutely. There's Matt Verderam joining us from SI NFL writer. What was that?
Go Sixers.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
yep.
he left.
He's Knicks fan.
Knicks beat the Sixers last night.
And the Knicks beat the Sixers. The Lakers beat the Supersonics. It was a good day. And Karl Anthony Towns walked into the arena with a Philadelphia Eagles shirt on. as the Knicks were playing the Sixers, and he's rocking an Eagle. He's an Eagles fan. He's from Jersey, so there you go. But he thinks Baltimore's the better matchup, and that's Kent Swanson said Baltimore's a better matchup. Verderame said Baltimore's a better matchup.
I think Baltimore's a better matchup, and you're just trying to be a hot take artist. I get it.
No, not at all.
You hear that, Dylan?
Hot take, yes. Buffalo,
Shock.
Yes, Buffalo is a better matchup for the Chiefs than Baltimore. That is going out on a limb. It's going out on a limb there, I'll tell you that much.
Dylan, who do you got?
The second and third best teams in the AFC. And put them all in a hat, even with the Chiefs, and you pull out a team, and you can make a really strong argument as to why they might be the best team in the AFC. Dylan, who you got, Baltimore or Buffalo?
I think Buffalo is the team you'd rather see. I really do. I think Baltimore is the more complete team. I think that's why Jason feels the same way, is that there's more avenues to beat the Bills than there is to beat the Ravens, with them having a stout defense and a newer defensive scheme that everyone doesn't have a lot of film on, with a new defensive coordinator in
So Jason is Shock and Dylan is Jock.
Sure.
And you are Rock and Jock?
I'm correct.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Matt Verderam joining us. Talking some Chiefs. Talking some Houston Texans, NFL football. And the latest is, if you did not hear, about an hour ago, a little less than that actually, about 45 minutes ago, we find out in Houston, this will definitely be a development we'll be watching and paying attention to, and that is Joe Mixon is not practicing today after logging a limited participant practice yesterday after not being on the injury report on Tuesday. So Tuesday, no injury designation. Yesterday, limited. Today, not practicing with an ankle injury. Now, as we've talked about, and that typically means in the NFL, you get injured in practice.
Yeah.
If you're limited, if you don't have an injury designation, and then you're limited in practice, typically means during that practice you got injured and left. And so you were only limited. You weren't a full participant in practice. And now he's not out there practicing today. Was it, Matt Verderam brought it up, was it an ankle injury that he missed, that big chunk of the season for Joe Mixon? Because if it was, that certainly changes things for.
I'm trying to see. Does it say on his Wikipedia page, maybe?
Why doesn't it say on his Wikipedia page? Yeah, ankle expected to return to lineup. So for the high ankle sprain against the Bears in Week 2, missed the past 3 games. So that was
same ankle, different ankle.
I don't know.
It just
says ankle.
Just ankle.
It's like Herm Edwards. He's got a little bit of an ankle. He got an ankle going on.
He's got a groin.
He's got a little bit of a groin.
Whoa.
Hey, I mean, that's just what he would say. I don't know. Let
me see if NBC Sports has it.
Back on December 18th, when the Texans, who were they playing that week? Because I'm looking up. This is great radio, by the way. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in right now. As we're just trying to give you all the latest factual information as we can. December 18th, let's see, they played, getting ready for the Kansas City Chiefs. Says, okay. Texans added the ankle injury to the practice report Wednesday when Mixon had a limited participant on Tuesday. Mixon was injured for the second time this season on a hip drop tackle. On Sunday, Dolphins linebacker Jordan Brooks used the hip drop tackle on Mixon, who briefly left the game with an injury. Mixon said Tuesday he expects to play Saturday against the Chiefs. He did, but he also did not miss practice.
He had 2 hip drop tackles against him.
Because he was, I don't remember talking about Joe Mixon missing time in that game. I don't remember that being a conversation.
Against the Chiefs, no, but I do remember earlier on in the year when he had a hip drop tackle against him that missed, you said 3 games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Texans did not list running back Joe Mixon with an injury Tuesday. Instead, they reported him as a limited participant with a rest day. The Texans added the ankle injury to the practice report Wednesday as a limited participant. But again, that's limited. And that was before the Chiefs game. They have played 3 games since.
Gamesmanship.
Baltimore, Tennessee, and now L.A. But I don't remember anything in the game, and we wouldn't remember anything in the game because he had no injury designation on Tuesday, and he was participating and practicing. So he didn't have to be listed as a full participant because he had no designation. It's just an N/A under the Tuesday practice report. Robert Woods, also not participating in practice today. This is 3 straight DNPs for Robert Woods. I would say it's pretty unlikely that Robert Woods would play in the game against the Chiefs. I mean, he has a hip injury from the Chargers game, and he hasn't participated in any practice this week.
Which is a fairly big loss. You might not think Robert Woods, but when you look at that wide receiver room.
They lose Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Robert Woods was your 4. Now he's your 2.
Yeah.
Now Hutchinson, who was your 5th, is your 2.
Yeah, and John Mechie's still kind of figuring out that role, maybe slot a little bit. But
so your 5th and 6th become your 2 and 3.
You have Nico Collins, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, and then it looks like their number 4 is Jared Wayne.
You just made that name up.
Jared Wayne has no targets or reception. I don't think he's played in a game this year, maybe. He's a rookie.
Well, and something to think about, Matt Ariza punting. There have been 5 Houston Texans that have returned to punt this year for the Texans. 5 of them.
Yeah.
That would be Steven Sims, not on the team. Desmond King, not on the team anymore. Deontay Johnson, not on the team anymore. And their 2 primary punt returners were Tank Dell and Robert Woods. So 5 guys have returned to punt for Houston this year. If Robert Woods doesn't play, none of those 5 guys will be returning a punt for Houston against Matt Ariza, that people say has a tough football to catch.
Well, and you also look
with
at
a gusty wind in the game on Saturday.
Tight end, Cade Stover was placed on IR, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So then you have Irv Smith Jr., who hasn't got much run at all. He's going to be your tight end 2 because Brevin Jordan's on the IR already. They're tight end 3. The injury report for the Texans is starting to really pile up. Now, defensively, they're pretty healthy. Defensively, they got a lot of guys. Danico Autry, obviously.
Yeah.
Defensively, they're as healthy as any team pretty much is outside of, honestly, as healthy as you're going to be this time of year. You're losing Jalen Petrie. That's big, but you still have Eric Murray. Their defense is healthy. Just offensively, they are decimated with a lot of injuries at some skill positions.
Yeah, and Shaq Mason and Juice Scruggs. Shaq Mason got injured in the game against the Chiefs at guard, and Juice Scruggs has been filling in for him.
It's a great name.
That's right. Shaq Mason finally practicing for the first time since that game. Did not practice on Tuesday, limited yesterday, but they have already said Shaq Mason isn't playing in this game.
Yeah.
So Juice Scruggs, who also got injured in the game against the Chargers, didn't practice yesterday, or didn't practice on Tuesday, limited yesterday. He'll be the starter at guard, but they are down to a backup guard from a guy that played in that game. And Danico Autry, as you mentioned, knee has been limited, but he'll be playing in the game. So this is a Texans team that's now coming in even more injured than they were getting ready to play the Chargers, in which they were already an injured team.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs are getting the healthiest they've been all year.
They also have a running back. Sorry. You said fake name, Jared Wayne. They have a running back who's on the IR whose name is British Brooks. There is zero chance that's a real name.
He's from France?
British Brooks.
Interesting.
Great name.
So, I mean, if Joe Mixon and Robert Woods are not out there on the field on Saturday,
yeah,
what's the line? Like, it's 8.5 right now. It's gone from 8.5 to 7.5 to 8.5. But if we find out on Saturday that inactives come out and Mixon and Woods are on the inactive list, what's it go up to, 11?
Nah, I don't know if they're, 9.5, 10 maybe.
I guess Joe Mixon isn't a quarterback, so we shouldn't
affect it that much.
Yeah,
it's not a quarterback. It's not going to be.
But I just think he's so important to that offense.
I agree.
So it would then be Nico, and that's it. Nico and a sprinkle of little Dalton Schultz in there.
Yeah.
Be Nico and Schultz all you'd have to worry about. Because Damian Pierce or Ogunbowale as a running back, not Joe Mixon.
Ogunbowale is a good third down back. Damian Pierce is a fine.
He was a nice fantasy player a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but he's not been. He's really fallen off as far as running back.
There's a reason they went and got Joe Mixon.
Yes, 100%. It's to me their wide receiver room is the one that's so
decimated.
But again, what it comes down to is Nico Collins is so good you can't let him beat you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I don't want to overlook that just because you're talking about guys that we haven't necessarily heard of a lot. They were high on John Mechie, right? They were really high on John Mechie coming into the season. They were high on Xavier Hutchinson coming into the season. Just because they've not had great years or they've not really blown up doesn't mean that they're not talented players. They're in the NFL for a reason. You got to be on those dudes. And maybe it is a good game for Jalen Watson to ease back into things, but same time, you got to be draped all over Nico Collins. You cannot let him beat you. If John Mechie beats you, okay, you live with that. You're not letting Nico Collins go for 115, 120 and a touchdown or two.
Right.
That can't happen.
Double team him. Play one-on-one with Mechie and Hutchinson and whoever else with your cornerbacks.
John Wayne.
Yeah, but go John Wayne. That's fine. But I feel pretty good if we're talking about Najee and if we're talking about Joshua Williams or Jalen Watson, and you're saying, all right, Trent McDuffie is on Nico, and they're shading with somebody on Nico, and Joshua Williams, you've got Mechie, and Najee, you've got Hutchinson, or Jalen Watson, CRW.
Yeah.
And then figure out Dalton Schultz. And if there's no Joe Mixon, like, what do the Texans do to be able to move the football and score? Like, I don't know what they would do to be able to do that without Robert Woods and without Joe Mixon. Robert Woods isn't amazing, but he's at least a reliable player that has been with the Texans offense this entire year and has stepped up into the number 2 wide receiver role when Tank Dell went down. After Diggs and Dell have gone down, Robert Woods has been that guy.
What's paramount for Kansas City is every game. I know this is not breaking news. I think sometimes it can be oversimplified and we talk too much about it, but the turnover margin, you obviously not 4, but even 2. You don't want to leave a team like Houston in the game. You can't have a pick 6. You can't have a fumble in the red zone because, again, that I don't want to overlook the Texans, especially that defense. Because that defense is really, really good. Azeez Al-Shahir, as we talked about, he's back. Danielle Hunter, Tim Settle Jr., who talked all that smack. We told him to settle down, but not hear him talk smack anymore. Will Anderson Jr., Derek Barnett, Mario Edwards. They are just plush with defensive talent getting after the quarterback, especially on the edges. They really destroyed the interior of the Chargers, offensive line. That's not going to be the case against this Chiefs interior. But again, Will Anderson and Danielle, the tackles have to be on their A game. We've talked about their their linebackers. They are good physical linebackers. Whatever your thoughts are on Al-Shahir, dirty or not, he's going to be very, very physical. He is their captain. Secondary, Kamir Lassiter, Jeff Okudah, Derek Stingley is one of the best cornerbacks in all of football. Eric Murray's been having a nice year in place of Jalen Petrie. So just you cannot take that defense for granted. And you have to take care of the football because they are opportunistic.
Yep. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. I want to hear from Travis Kelce on the other side because he had weighed in. Just a quick little nugget on, if we don't get to it next, we'll get into it in the 1 o'clock hour after the Chiefs. But also, I went back and looked and charted Trent McDuffie and who was guarding Nico Collins. And earlier in the week when I rewatched the Chiefs and Texans, and on the quick rewatch, the condensed game, I came away with like, oh man, McDuffie wasn't on Williams as much as I thought. Just simply watching the game, not paying strictly attention to that. Last night I went back and only specifically watched every single offensive play for the Texans to see who was lined up on Nico Collins. Obviously, some is man-to-man, some is you drop into zone. Some of it, he's blocking. But you don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass. So who was lining up across from Nico Collins at the snap? We'll get into those numbers next and how wrong I was. Next. We'll hear from DeAndre Hopkins.
Whoa. That guy played for the Texans.
He played in that 2019 game. Crazy. And then we'll hear from Drew Tranquill.
Ooh.
He played for the Chargers.
Yeah, interesting.
That the Texans played last week.
Hey, so what's it like seeing your former team lose to the team you're going to play? DeAndre, let's get both of you up at the same time. We'll talk about your former teams.
Yeah, I think Drew Tranquill is perfectly fine taking some shots at the Chargers as he did last year.
Yeah, sure seems
on the
like
radio.
he's okay about that.
On this show, he had some fun taking some shots at the Chargers on this show. We joked with him because that tweet he put out there about took a picture of the screenshot with Andy Reid saying, when you think red, think Super Bowls. And Drew Tranquill, when they were going to the Super Bowl, he tweeted that picture, screenshot. But he had 200 unanswered text messages, but also his phone's battery was at 5%. It was in the red. And so we joked with him, and he said, yeah, I try to avoid all chargers right now. I'm not even going to charge my phone. I just want to stay away from anything that's a charger.
Good for him.
Thank you, Drew. That's fun.
You know when you go to a wedding
Yeah.
and you have the chargers underneath the plate?
Yeah.
He just throw it away.
Yep.
Just the plate.
Nope, not at all.
No charger.
So earlier in the week, I thought anecdotally what the Chiefs were doing the first go-around against Nico Collins, and thought, it looked like there was some Joshua Williams on there. There was some Christian Roland-Wallace on Nico Collins. Trent McDuffie was on him a little bit, but traveling with Nico didn't seem like that was the case. And then I watched it last night and specifically tracked who was on Nico Collins at the snap for every play. Again, acknowledging some are run plays, but also some are zones where they're dropping back in a zone, and then there's certainly man-to-man that goes along with it where you're just simply guarding that guy. So not getting into the weeds of, well, they guarded him and this was zone, well, he was in this guy's zone there, or this guy had a man-to-man. It's just, if we're talking about traveling with a receiver, who's lining up across from Nico Collins in that game? He played 50 snaps in that game. And while it seemed like Joshua Williams played more snaps on Nico Collins, he didn't play many. Early in the game, they had Joshua Williams. The first couple of drives, Joshua Williams was on Nico. Trent McDuffie was on Nico as well, so they were sort of exchanging those tasks. And the interception to Nico, was that Hicks that intercepted in the first drive? Joshua Williams was on Nico Collins and had great coverage, because if C.J. Stroud doesn't overthrow Nico Collins, Joshua Williams may intercept it if it's right there, because he's right on Nico Collins. He's running the route with Nico Collins, okay? So that was a good coverage snap for him. But of the 50 snaps that Nico Collins played, lining up directly opposite him 30 times was Trent McDuffie. It was, I was really surprised. And it was surprising how early in the game, how many tally marks I was putting next to Joshua Williams, to then that going blank, to then nothing. But then also, as the game went along in the third and fourth quarter, how many times I was putting tally marks next to Christian Roland-Wallace, who was lining up. But it was essentially, the second half was Trent McDuffie, 4 out of 5 snaps, and then Christian Roland-Wallace would line up opposite him. Some of it was he's playing man-to-man. There was some times where Roland-Wallace was running with Nico Collins at the snap.
Well, he plays only the slot, so if Nico lines up in the slot, that's going to...
But there were plenty of slot times where Trent McDuffie was on Nico Collins in the slot. It was just where it seemed like on this play, Trent is following Nico wherever he goes, whether that's the right side, the left side, in the slot, what have you. But not every snap, because the touchdown to Dalton Schultz, Christian Roland-Wallace was on Nico Collins. Trent McDuffie was guarding one-on-one, man-to-man against Dalton Schultz in that touchdown when Schultz tossed him aside and discarded him in the end zone, and he caught the touchdown there. So it was 30 for Trent McDuffie. The next most was Christian Roland-Wallace with 9. Then Joshua Williams with 8.
Yeah.
Justin Reed 2. Brian Cook 1. 0 for Najee.
Yeah.
0 times they put Najee Johnson on Nico Collins, but 30 out of 50 was a surprise because anecdotally, watching the game condensed version on Sunday night after the Bills beat the Broncos and we knew we were going to be talking about Chiefs and Texans, it just seemed like there was more Joshua Williams, and maybe it was because early on I was paying a little more attention to that, and that's when Joshua Williams was on him more often.
So I'm intrigued by this because Christian Roland Wallace played 151 snaps as slot corner. He's played 4 all year at wide. He plays just the slot.
He was in the slot the whole game. He wasn't playing out wide.
And so I want to look for Nico Collins, and I want to see because he does play in the slot
everywhere.
Good. I want to see if PFF has his.
Oh, they will.
I don't know why
detailed snaps.
Let me see if I can. Yeah, let me see if I can find the details. Sorry, his page is showing nothing at the moment.
Oh.
Which is always good. Which
probably operator error. I'm assuming for you.
Doesn't sound like me.
Really?
Here we go.
So all that to say that
he plays about 20% of his snaps in the slot. He plays out wide 453 snaps this year. He played in the slot 109. Yeah. So Christian Roland Wallace, if you're going to be a slot guy, you're going to get a good chunk against Nico. I wonder if they try and say, hey, we don't want to deal with Trent.
Mm-hmm.
Nico, you're our guy. Let's throw you in the slot.
Now, I will say as well, these are not all just man-to-man coverages. So there are a couple times when Roland Wallace was lined up right across from Nico, and at the snap, he fades back and then slides to his right to cover the zone area. But again, I'm just simply because then nobody's guarding Nico. Then it's closest defender, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking about zone. But he was the one that lined up right across from him, and then they switched to zone or what have you. The Justin Reed one was when he lined up across from Nico, and they tried to throw that quick out to Nico, and Justin Reed beat the defender and wraps him up. The Brian Cook one was in a zone where Brian Cook was the safety that was playing at the second level, and Nico takes off right down the field, and that's in Brian Cook's area. So then Brian Cook has to turn and run with Nico, and C.J. Stroud threw somewhere else. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, oh, wow, they left Cook and Nico one-on-one there in that particular zone. That was an interesting call, but it's the only time we saw something like that. So safeties were on Nico, whether that even be in their zone or not, 3 times out of the 50 plays that he played. That includes running plays. It includes all that stuff. It's just whoever was lined. So Trent did travel with Nico a lot more than I thought he would. So, yeah, I would expect that to be the case. That breakdown might be even higher. It might even be a higher percentage with no Tank Dell and more than likely no Robert Woods in this game. So we'll see. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and we'll hear from Andy Reid. We will hear from DeAndre Hopkins, and we'll hear from Drew Tranquill coming up next. That doesn't sound like a horn at all.
That's timpani right there.
Is that what it is?
That's timpani.
Good for you. Yeah, little horns. Like it. NFL football.
You a trombone guy or a trumpet guy?
I'm more of the just the horn.
Oh, the French horn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's me. Neither the trombone nor the trumpet.
What about you? You a baritone man, a clarinet, flute? What kind of guy are you back there?
The recorder.
The recorder?
What's
Nice.
the horn that does the call to the post?
Is that the trumpet?
Trumpet, yeah.
Is that the trumpet?
I think so.
Okay, then that's what I am.
The trumpet. Mambo number 5.
Why were you Lou Bega in a Patrick Mahomes accent? What just happened?
I'm here for Mambo number 5. Trumpet.
Anytime I hear somebody say trumpet, I can't not hear Lou Bega going, trumpet.
Mambo number 5.
Anyway, we'll hear from Andy Reid, DeAndre Hopkins, and Drew Tranquill in just a little bit.
Can you ask Patrick? Hey, Lebo, ask Patrick to say Mambo number 5. Hey,
Mambo number 5?
What's his favorite Lou Bega song? He's going to be like, I got girls everywhere. And I'll be like, shoot, that's not what we wanted.
Is that a Lou Bega song?
I think it's called Everywhere. Yeah,
yeah.
And it sounds
in his
the
house
exact
he
same.
does now. Outnumbered at his own house.
Well, that's not what the song's about, but yeah,
3-2. Girls to guys. Way to go, Patrick. Outnumbered now. Getting outvoted. You think Andy Reid will tell us who's starting at left tackle?
No, that's Veach's job. Veach handles that.
Yeah, so I haven't talked to Rick yet. We'll see. Matt handles all that stuff.
Yeah, Matt Nagy handles all that. Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance?
Andy Heck handles all that.
Do you think there's any chance that Andy Reid was actually rotating tackles this week at practice?
Yeah, I don't know why he would lie about it. Actually, I actually do. I don't know why he would lie about that.
No chance they're rotating that.
You think it was all just a ruse?
I think it's one thing to say, well, we'll rotate in there. Yeah, when you have your second stringers in there. I cannot imagine in my wildest dreams.
Your dreams are pretty tame then.
I know. A few days before the Chiefs play a divisional round game in the playoffs, that Andy Reid is rotating his ones with Joe Thuney and DJ Humphries, and that's how they're getting their reps.
Well,
he knows who's starting at left tackle, and that's the guy getting the number 1 reps this week. Maybe it's 9-1.
Sure, I bet he is
9
rotating.
reps for the starter.
I bet, or 8-2.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's probably not. I get what you're. It's not 5-5.
Yes.
Sure.
It's not. I don't know who's playing. I'm not sure. We'll rotate those guys in and see. He's seen what he needs to see. You've got one guy that's played 3 games with Patrick Mahomes, and you've got one guy that's played 50 minutes with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
at left tackle.
It's not a great situation either way. Necessarily, it's not ideal, but you can't complain when you see the Houston wide receiving core. And
100%.
It's one of those ones where you find a way to get it done, and I think the Chiefs will find a way to get it done. If you trust Andy Heck, if you trust Andy Reid, you should trust what they're going to do game plan wise. Whoever starts, they're going to put that guy out there in the best position to succeed. And again, I think it will come down to Patrick maybe. Andy Reid should just be like, I haven't talked to Patrick yet about that.
It's Patrick handles all that. What if he did say that? But yeah, so that honestly would be who I would ask. That would be the most important factor for me is, Patrick, who do you trust? Who do you feel more comfortable in the pocket with?
He said Dylan Michaels. It was weird.
Then Dylan is the left tackle. If Patrick Mahomes feels more comfortable with Dylan, here's Andy Reid.
There's really no injuries to announce today. We look forward to the challenge of playing the Texans. Guys have had a good week of practice. They're a good football team, and our guys understand that. And I mentioned before D'Amico, who actually I had an opportunity for him to play for me in Philadelphia. Has done a great job down there, and he's a great player, and he's transitioned that right into being a great coach. So, anyways, we look forward to that challenge of playing them. Any questions?
What's your favorite part about this time of year, in the prep and all that?
Yeah, I think you sort of limited. You're one of the few standing, first of all, and so the preparation, you've got to really take care of business there. The error margin is tiny, and so you got to make sure that you play well, coach well, the whole works, which is great. I mean, we're in this to challenge ourselves. No better time than now. Yeah.
Andy, what's the type of mentality you want your team to play with on Saturday?
Yeah, so it's always, physical football. You want to eliminate mistakes, make sure that you stay accurate, and then play hard. So then you let the chips fall where they may.
Kind of speaking of Ryan, what does it mean to you that McDermott, Harbaugh, and all you guys are what are left in the AFC at this point?
Yeah, I was fortunate to have some good guys, and there are other ones too, but I mean, these guys have done a great job. My hat goes off to them. Proud of them for sure. Yeah.
How antsy do you think some of the guys are to play just after the bye week, and then for some of them just the extended time off?
Yeah, listen, they look forward to it. I mean, the Texans likewise. I mean, you get to this time of the year, it's an honor to be at playing at this time. So, energy is normally sky high with guys. So.
Watson and Hardman were on injured reserve and working their way back. Do you anticipate either player activated?
Yeah, I'm gonna get with each, and we'll figure all that out. So, probably more Watson than McCall right now, but we'll see how it goes.
You also mentioned you were going to be rotating at left tackle this week with Joe and with DJ. Did you see enough to make a decision yet for Saturday?
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I've taken it this far. I'm going to get with the coaches and just make sure, what they want and where we're at with that. But they've both been in there. So they've both been in there and done a nice job. It's great. That's a positive thing.
You mentioned just with the coaches. How much of a role do you have Patrick at that? That's just as far as what he's comfortable with and what he'd like.
Yeah, listen, he likes both guys, so he trusts those guys, and that's where he's at. But I always keep that in mind for sure.
Andy, just to clarify with Jalen Watson, he is going to play?
Well, I'm going to see, but I tell you, he's closer probably than the McCall situation.
If he comes back on Saturday and plays, what do you, nothing against the other guys, but what have you been missing without him?
Watson, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's worked tremendously hard to get himself to this point, first of all. And we'll just see how that goes as far as the game reps and all that. But he sure has worked hard to get himself even to this point right here. So.
Last one, Matt.
Coach, what do you expect the atmosphere to be like on Saturday? What's your message to the fans that'll be out?
Yeah. It's always electric, and even more so during the playoffs. So we love playing here, love our fans. We'll put them up against anybody. So we appreciate all the support always. So they've helped us get that home record that we've got, and we appreciate that. All right, I got one last thing. Doggone it. You're retiring on me, man. Oh, doggone. But listen, 32 years, and this is what you get right here, dude. No, that's not all. But for right now, congratulations, though. Enjoy every minute. We also have a cheeseburger bar for all of you, but in tribute to Adam. All right, so I'm literally going to treat you to a cheeseburger.
I'll take care of it. I'll handle that.
All right, man. You've done a great job.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Good. You want to get up here and give a speech?
Is this my last game, though?
No, well, I don't know about that one, but you can get up here though, and
Come on up, Adam.
it's a great opportunity.
All right, thanks. Good luck Saturday.
Yep. All right.
No speech from Adam Teicher. Teicher, come on, get up and give a speech. You got a football there. And a great question by Adam Teicher, one of his best. Is this my last game? Is he giving a speech now?
I'm saying they're getting a cool picture together I'm watching on the YouTube.
Andy and Adam?
Yeah.
With the football. But a great question by Adam. Well, is this my last game covering? You're giving me this football right now. Is this the last game? No, hopefully not. We'll talk a lot about what Andy said. Here's Drew Tranquil.
This opportunity, 8 teams left. And so you prepare all year, off-season OTAs, training camp, for this moment, and it's win or go home. And so, with that pressure is a privilege, and we're excited again to get a shot at it.
Was there a moment in last year's first playoff game, other than the fact it was about 30 below zero, that told you that playoff football was a little different than regular season football?
There's just something about it leading into the week, like the week of preparation. You know, a lot of your peers in the NFL are on vacation and packing up their lockers, and you still have an opportunity to be playing. And so I think it's the week leading into it when not everybody's practicing. You're out there. A lot of times there's snow on the ground. It's cold outside, and it just feels like playoff football.
Drew, how important is tackling in a cold day and kind of the will to tackle, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's huge in the playoffs. Everything gets amplified. Tackling's certainly one of those things, and they got a lot of good ball carriers that can get yards after the catch, and so we'll have to be on it.
Anything else?
Drew, just one thing about Andy. I know this is hard to sum up, but in your time here, what have you come to see in him that maybe sets him apart?
Yeah, he's ultra consistent. He's got a routine. He's got a formula. He sticks to it. Never too high, never too low. Very bright football mind. Has a lot of really good ideas. Leans on his coaches, his players. And I think he's done a great job of building a good team around him. But he's an historic coach, one of the best of all time.
Drew, after the Super Bowl win last year, expectedly you were emotional, it seemed like, in the locker rooms. How much is that feeling driving you and maybe the team as you enter this postseason?
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but there was something, at our ring ceremony where it was like you're hungry to get that first, but it was almost like there was a hunger to get back on the field, even at the ring ceremony, to do it again. And guys and coaches will talk about that. After you get that first, there's a hunger, there's a drive to get a second, get a third. And so I certainly feel that. Excited for another opportunity.
Anything else?
What are the biggest keys for the Texans? You saw them not that long ago. Anything different with them now? They look any different?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is going to be our execution. They got a lot of good playmakers. They got a great play caller. They got a great quarterback. And so they're going to do what they're good at. We're going to do what we're good at, and it's going to be about who executes the best.
When you guys get your plan, your game plan, is it? I mean, I'm assuming it's different little wrinkles here and there. You expect the same thing from them, right? So a little bit of a chess match to figure out what they're.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you're playing a division opponent. Where you see a team twice a year. We're seeing them for the second time, I think, in like a month and a half, and so they know us. We know them a little bit, and so I'm sure there'll be wrinkles here and there. It's going to come down to execution.
Thanks, Drew.
I was going to say, win or lose, where do you plan to be, and what are your plans for the college football championship?
I plan to watch the Irish, and I plan to watch them win.
Thanks, Drew.
All right, y'all. There you go. There's Drew Tranquill getting ready for postseason game number 5. Just like the Mambo, number 5. Postseason game number 5 for Drew Tranquill with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the last time he played a playoff game at Arrowhead, it was minus 27 wind chill. It's going to be a little bit different this go around, but pressure is a privilege, as Drew Tranquill said. Getting ready for this matchup, and this is why you play the game. And playing Houston again, a little bit like a divisional opponent. You see him for the second time this year. Adjustments made from the first go around. What adjustments you think they'll make? What adjustments you are making? You got a feel for what they do, how they play, and things like that. But we'll hear from DeAndre Hopkins, but Andy Reid, Jalen Watson, he's going to get with Veach. There's a better chance that it's Watson than McColl to fill that open spot in coming off the IR. And then Adam Teicher clarified at the end and said, just to clarify, you expect Jalen Watson to play? And he said, we'll see. He's closer than McColl. We'll see how it goes with game reps. That last part sort of gave away when he's like, we'll see how, what the game reps look like for Jalen Watson, who you haven't met with Veach yet to see if he's going to play on Saturday, but you're already wondering, what the game reps will look like while he's in there. I mean, he's going to be playing on Saturday. It's less than 3 months after having surgery for a fractured fibula and tibia.
Insane.
Less than 3 months to return to play.
Remember his story. Like, worked at a Wendy's, went to JUCO. Like, those are the little things and the intangibles. Like, look at all the guys that are playing injured in this college football playoff.
Yeah.
People, when they are doing the scouting and the March stuff for the draft, this matters. And that's probably what Jalen Watson, one of his traits is guy never quits.
Yeah. I mean, he played last year with the torn labrum at the end of the season so that he could still be out there. And he's returning in under 3 months to play. Not returning to, okay, you're able to go and practice now. To play a playoff game. Playoffs. To play a playoff game less than 3 months after having surgery for a fractured fibula and tibia. I don't know how well he's going to play, but I promise you, Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt are not going to put Jalen Watson out on the field if they think he's a liability and less of a factor to help them win than CRW or Najee Johnson or Joshua Williams. They ain't going to put him out there just for an attaboy and a tip of the cap and pat on his back for working hard to come back. This ain't you don't get a ribbon for working hard to come back.
It ain't a whale. It's a hand. You know, like a cornerback, if it was a hammy or a knee, sprain or something like that, probably, that might be a liability. But when his legs are good, man, that's kind of the most important thing, just be in place. He may miss an interception that might be important, but he also had a one-handed interception against the Jags with a broken hand.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, we'll see. But I just, cutting and stopping and starting on a surgically repaired ankle less than 3 months after it happens.
Oh, my goodness, my bad.
It's like, you're back for what?
Saying that it wasn't a leg when it is exactly.
Well, I thought you were saying like it wasn't a soft tissue.
Yeah. We'll say that.
I'm going to give you benefit of the doubt that you weren't
so
saying
much.
like it's a soft tissue to where you push off and now all of a sudden your hamstring
That's what I meant,
goes out again. Where if it's repaired, it's repaired. Yeah. And the only way it happens, you heard it again, is if it's another freak thing where somebody rolls and falls on your ankle the way that happened, not just, starting to take off and now your hamstring gives out. Like we saw with DJ Humphries, that was just reaching for a block late in the fourth quarter and immediately holds on to the back of his leg. I thought that's what you were going for. That's why I was like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Looking for the bathroom, wound up in the living room.
But you know what?
You can still go. You're still in the house, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Although
that's true.
Although it would be better if you weren't in the house rather than the living room. I think there are really two places around the house to go. It's the bathroom or outside.
Well, Dylan's just a puppy.
Well, yeah, you know what? Rub your nose in it. Sterling, you're trying to rub your nose in his take? You're saying his take was that bad? You got to rub your nose in it? Here's DeAndre.
He should.
Just taking it play-by-play. Got walkthroughs tomorrow, preparing. I like the preparation that goes into the game. So, just taking it play-by-play and the preparation.
If you're commented about just how much you've helped him since you arrived here, what has that been like on your end, just kind of seeing him through?
It's easy when you got someone like him who's willing to work, willing to learn, and ask questions. He definitely, reminded me of myself when I was young around Andre Johnson, just asking questions and absorbing, not just on the field but off the field, how to, get his body prepared for big games and things like that. So, it's been fun.
I know you guys try to do the same thing every week to get prepared. Does it feel different preparing for these postseason games than it does other games?
Yeah, of course. Just the level of detail is just a little bit higher, and things that you do throughout the week. Preparing your body for that game, you want to be your best. So, it's definitely just a little bit more preparation.
And people talk about the speed of the game. Almost everybody in the locker room has played in playoff games. There are a couple of rookies, like you mentioned, with Xavier. I mean, how do you even explain to him how much different it is, like that speed difference?
He's a fast guy, but I think the speed difference is, when people say the speed, it's more so, just being where you need to be in the level of detail and just, not making mistakes. But, I don't know too many people who in this NFL who's faster than Xavier. But, for the young guys, who this is their first time playing in big games like this, just go out and play your game. Don't overthink or don't listen to the outside noise.
DeAndre, you played here in a playoff game before, obviously on the other sideline. What do you take from that to help you this time around?
Pardon me?
What do you take from last time you played here in a playoff game in 2019? What do you take from it to help you this time?
I don't know if there's really too much I can take from it. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just different situation.
Well, how was that kind of when it was going through your mind there, 24-0, you guys have the lead. What are your kind of just memories of that game, and what were you thinking at that point?
Oh man, I definitely live in the present. I don't really dwell on the past too much, but what I remember is just being up 24, and I think the fake punt kind of shifted the momentum of that game, and after that, that's kind of all I really remember, honestly. Just the fake punt and everything else just kind of going the Chiefs' way.
In the back.
How excited are you just kind of get out there and play, such a high-stakes game with playoff football and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, very excited. That's the reason that I wanted to be here. And I think, that's part of the reason that, Veach brought me here for games like this. So, to go out and play my game and, do what I can and uplift everyone else.
Last one, anyone? Thanks, D-Hop.
Sure.
All right, there's new confidence. He played in that 2019 game. Not going to dwell on the past or anything like that, but we knew he'd probably be asked about it, and said, all he can remember about that game really being up 24-0, and then the fake punt shifted momentum. Now, they weren't up 24-0 when the fake punt happened, but we talked about it at the time. A lot of conversation around that. The fake punt felt like a little bit of a panic move by Bill O'Brien in the, there's some momentum going over there. Like, we got to go and fake punt here. And then, the Chiefs just simply taking over after that first sort of wheel route to Damian Williams touchdown. And after the kickoff return from McCole Hardman down 24-0. That was huge. They started off in Houston Texans territory, I believe, after that kickoff return. So that was the spark. And then the first or second play of that drive was that throw to Kelce, which was just a brilliant dime from Mahomes. And when Kelce gets tackled, he gets up and starts fist pumping the crowd. Down 24-0.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. Like, who does that down 24-0? Is that intense off a first down play? And at that point, like, it almost felt like everybody was like, all right, let's calm down. Let's go play. Like, at least from my standpoint, it was like, okay, now we might see the Chiefs now. Now we might actually see who the Chiefs are, because this feels different than what that freaking tsunami was that just came and washed over them. That, okay, now you're above water. Can they dig out of this?
Yeah.
And they did. And then they got the fake punt. And they did. And they got the fumbled kickoff. And they did. And it obviously snowballed the other way, and they're up 28-24 at halftime. And it's like, what the hell just happened? But to look back to think, down 24-0, completely out of it, no energy, crowd is deflated, a kickoff return and like a 15-yard pass to Kelce. And it was like, let's play. It's so weird how quickly the things can change. In the playoffs, the Chargers were controlling the game until C.J. Stroud fumbled the snap, dropped the ball, picked it up. For whatever reason, the Chargers defensive end, and I don't remember who it was, it wasn't Bosa or Khalil Mack, ran straight at C.J. Stroud instead of containing him, allowing Stroud to get around the edge. And because he dropped the ball, the second layer of defenders moved up 10 yards towards the line of scrimmage, which allowed the wide open receiver behind him, Hutchinson, to get the ball on 3rd and long, and they score a touchdown on that drive.
Yep.
That play changed the whole game. We might be talking about the Chiefs and the Chargers right now if he just simply catches the snap. If the snap doesn't go right through. It wasn't a bad snap. It just went through his hands. If he just catches it.
And things were snowballing at that point. Things were bad.
And the Chargers would be getting the ball back before half. Up 6-0. Maybe they go and score. But instead, the Texans got 10 points after that play.
All you need is a spark.
All you need is a miracle.
Or
All you
spark.
need
I don't know.
is you. Man, it felt like a miracle when the Chiefs were down 24-0. But then it was like, you know what? This is what happens. The Chiefs in 2019 had a college basketball element to them that you look up and they just went on a 15-0 run in college basketball.
It was the Warriors.
Yeah.
Back when Kevin Durant.
It was
when you'd be watching a game in the third quarter and they're down by 15 points and you're finding a line somewhere that has them plus 110 or plus 130
something
for the Warriors.
For the money line, yeah. Like the Chiefs, and they can't do it with this team. We haven't seen it. We really haven't seen it much since that 2018, 2019 team.
Yeah.
But they were a team that 5 minutes later, they just put up 3 touchdowns. They did it in the Super Bowl.
The Raiders, remember that Raiders game in the
28
second
points
quarter?
In the second quarter. Yeah. That's by the way, Clay Martin officiated that game, so we knew they were going to win. So we didn't know at the time that he was going to be. I think that was his first ever game officiating of the Chiefs. Was that 28?
We should have known. Foreshadowing.
28-10 win against the
So
Raiders.
bet on the Chiefs to score in the second quarter of this game is what you're saying?
A lot of points in the second quarter.
Well, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's just how quickly I think they have. I think they've lived a lot off of that game that has given them layers of armor that they have used and added extra layers of armor with each game that came along that they came back and won in. Each game away. But they were like that. It was that college basketball type team. They go on that 28-0 run in the second quarter against the Texans in 8 minutes. They go on a 21-0 run against the San Francisco 49ers in the final 7 minutes of the game when they had time to run WASP. They scored 10 points all game. 53 minutes, 10 points. 7 minutes, 21.
Shoot or shoot, baby.
No doubt. I don't know that this team has that, but that team certainly did. But we also haven't seen this team as healthy offensively with the pieces that they've been wanting to play with at all this year, like it's going to be this week. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will hear Travis Kelce weigh in on a are you close to retirement question from Stephen A. Smith and his answer. And Sean Payton went full Icarus yesterday. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. Program comes your way at 2 o'clock. We got a best of tonight at 6 o'clock. Casey Maverick show at 7 with, I believe, this says Sterling Holmes will be hosting that.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Let's hear.
Fun. Join me at Tanner's, guys. Yeah. Join me at Tanner's at 7 o'clock. The one at 143rd Metcalf.
Just some dude named Tanner. It's his house.
It's his house. We're going to a dude named Tanner's place.
Yeah.
No, it'll be fun though. They got good food and drink. We'll have fun. Mac's going to be there, the mascot.
Nice. Okay.
Some debauchery with the mascot, and I'll be there.
Okay.
We'll have fun.
There we go. Travis Kelce was there at the Stephen A. Smith show yesterday. And, you know, he weighed in on a lot of different things that we've heard him talk about before, how great Andy Reid is, why Mahomes is the greatest of all time, and Travis Kelce being biased, what it means to have all the records and everything. But then Stephen A. Said, you know, you've got all these records and stuff, and, you know, you're getting up there in age, sort of that motivation that's there. And if, you know, you and Jason, you got these things going off the field, if maybe there's thoughts of retirement on your mind or when this whole thing might be done. Here's Travis Kelce.
I think I'm so deep in chasing this one right now. I can't even fathom what football would be like. Not playing football as a profession, man. I still love coming into the building every single day. Does it get hard? Yeah, but I'm not doing it for the stats. I'm doing it for the greatness, the legacy that we've created here in Kansas City with Pat, with Chris Jones, with Coach Reed, Coach Spags, you name it, all the guys in the building, man. It's been so much fun coming in the building with these guys. So I can't fathom what it would feel like just being able to say I'm satisfied, because I'm still hungry to go and get something right now.
You know, I remember when Tom Brady was winning Super Bowls, he had a supermodel for a wife that wanted him to retire. Is Miss Swift, is she encouraging you to continue to play or to retire? Because it is a violent sport. And she don't want you hurt.
She's fully encouraging me to enjoy playing this game, and she loves coming to Arrowhead and coming to the games and cheering for me. So I got all the support in the world to keep chasing these dreams.
I thought the question was funny there about Brady was married to Giselle for a long time and had kids, and there was talk of retirement for a long time, and every offseason about retiring, and Brady said he was done, and then he unretired and came back, and that sort of was the final straw. Yeah. Taylor Swift's been in Travis's life for, you know, a year, like 15 months. Like, we would be talking about their relationship in the age of a baby still. Like, it's not years. It's like, how old is that baby? It's 14 months. Baby's 17 months old, this baby is. Can you 18 months old? No, it's a year and a half. Nope, 18 months old. Like, we're still talking about with Taylor Swift and Travis. If she's starting to go, hey, Travis, you should retire. Like,
well, it was the 1950s. They'd be married already with 3 kids.
That's a great point. In 18 months, 3 kids. I'm not sure. Irish twins, I guess. Irish triplets?
Stephen A. Smith is really good when in that setting. Whatever your thoughts are, I know some people aren't huge Stephen A. Smith fans, and I know at times I'm like, come on, this is just over the top. This is him trying to get engagement, right? That was really good because he does a great job of loosening Travis Kelce up before asking a question that's – we all want the answer of is he or is he not going to retire? How much longer does he have? But he does it in a way that almost sidesteps the question talking about Taylor Swift and Tom Brady and Giselle. I just thought that was actually a very good job by Stephen A. in a fun way, trying to get an answer that we all want that Travis would never answer, I don't think, in a straightforward manner.
There are so many differences between those two relationships, obviously, and it's not apples to apples. One of the main differences is this is all still new to Taylor Swift. Yeah. So going to games and everything was last year, right? It was only 1 year. This is all still, like, was Giselle every Sunday like, bleep, yeah, let's go to road games. Let's go to do this. We're getting everybody together. We're
20
watching
20 years of that.
Right. Like, eventually it gets old and it's like, yeah, daddy's at work today.
Yeah.
Yeah, daddy, yes, he's on TV. Yes, there's daddy. Wait till he gets home. Hey, yeah, trash day. Tom, are you going to take out the trash or not? Like, I got it last week because you were on the road, but it's trash day, so please, go ahead and take care of that. Thank you. And if you can get the dishes, that would be awesome because, I've been washing dishes for the last week while you guys – Like eventually it might get old,
especially when she's making a ton of money to begin with. It's not one of those situations where it's like, well, Tom's providing. It's like, she's providing as well.
Well, and Taylor Swift isn't giving up her career right now to raise a family with Travis and have Travis have his job, which then prevents Taylor from having her job and doing the things she wants to do. There's so many differences. Right now, they're still boyfriend-girlfriend, and then we weren't boyfriend-girlfriends no more. They're boyfriend-girlfriend, and it's all still probably still in the fresh stages. She doesn't have to give up anything of her career in this. They're not raising a family right now. It's still fresh and new in terms of going to games and fun, and probably hasn't, lost its luster there.
Let's be real.
She may be encouraging Travis to keep playing. Like, honestly, she may be like, no, don't retire yet. This is fun. I'm still enjoying going to games, seeing the girl. Like, no, let's do it. Let's keep playing.
And her Sundays a lot of times are booked up too with her own concerts. So she's like, oh, okay, so he has something to do. I don't have to entertain him.
Well, now that the Eras concert is over, she's got more time to and go to games. And it's like, okay, I'm not stressed of trying to go here and there. Now it's just like, hey, let's go to these games. This was fun watching these playoff games, watching you win Super Bowls. I don't want you to stop doing that.
I normally hate talking about relationships with athletes.
Mainly, it's when we try to talk about your relationship. With
I love my
you
relationship.
Hate it. Oh,
my
no,
wife's
you hate
amazing.
talking about it.
I'll talk about my wife all the time. She's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's not. I feel weird. It's not my place to talk about someone else's relationship. But I did talk about it from a perspective of. I think a lot of people last year heading into this year were talking about how now that he's dating Taylor Swift, is he going to retire early? Is he done? Is she? My thought was I think it almost gives him new life. I almost think it makes him feel younger. And maybe it's oversimplified by that, but I think it does, where you're talking about the funness of Taylor going to the game. It does feel a little high school almost. It does feel like he's trying to put on for her, almost show out for her. And again, maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but I almost thought it breathed new life into Travis, because now he went from, yes, he was the face and one of the faces of the Chiefs. Well, now he's one of the faces of the NFL and one of the faces of the world because of Taylor. So if you can keep going out there and putting up numbers and having fun with your guys while also being the face and doing all these fun other things, extracurriculars right now.
TV show, hosting a game show.
And you might still get some of those opportunities once you retire, but you're going to have more of them right now when you're on a Super Bowl winning team. So if you're Travis, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's got a little more left in the tank.
The first answer there, talking about what he's, the numbers versus the legacy. Obviously, the second answer is a fun sort of like throwing in there, like, what does Taylor think of your career? But when he says, is it hard coming into work it's hard, coming into work every day, but we're here chasing greatness and a legacy, and it's something more than just stats. When Travis hangs it up is when that weight scale shifts. Because right now the weight scale is still heavy towards chasing greatness and legacy, overshadowing how hard it is to come in every day. This many years in the league, this old, getting your body prepared, the bumps and bruises, the pain stays around a little bit longer. You don't have the same explosiveness, but you're chasing greatness, and that is a greater weight than how hard it is coming into work every day. When that starts to go the other way and even out, and it gets harder and harder to come into work every day and harder to get your body prepared, and it may not be as worth it, or the Chiefs aren't dynastic in that particular year or so, and your numbers starting to really decline, and you feel like, well, what am I doing on the field? I think that's the point where Travis Kelce says, I'm going to hang it up. I don't think it's Travis Kelce, I'm going to hang it up because I want to go host a game show. I don't think it's Travis Kelce, I want to stop playing football so I can do more of a podcast with my brother. I'm going to stop playing football so I can be on the ESPN Monday Night Football countdown set with my brother. He's got that. His brother's hosting a late night show. His brother's doing that. He would then be joining his brother. The podcast they have done together, right? Jason is doing some of those things. Travis is doing the TV shows and those things. When that weight starts to shift from chasing greatness and legacy outweighs how hard it is to come into work every day, when that starts to even out is when we really start to discuss how close is Kelce to stepping away from football.
Hey, I'm just saying Mercedes Lewis is still playing, and he's 40, so I think we got a few more years. Isn't it pretty crazy that Mercedes Lewis is still playing?
That actually is unbelievable.
He played in he played in 17 games this year. He had one reception for 2 yards. Only one reception for 2 yards, but he played in every single game this year at 40 years old.
And you know what's crazy is I can only tell you one team that he's not on this year, and that's the Chiefs. I don't know who he plays for.
I know.
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I just thought wherever Aaron Rodgers was, he was.
That's great. Yeah. I have no idea. I would have just been guessing. Might as well flip a coin for two teams.
He has been a Pro Bowler before.
Oh, I know. I just had no idea where he was playing
14
this
years ago. The last time he was a Pro Bowler was 14 years ago, and he wasn't that
amazing.
young. He was 26.
That's crazy. It's funny. We were watching. I wasn't watching, but somebody tweeted out one of the greatest 5-minute stretches at the end of a game in a divisional round game was the Saints and 49ers. Alex Smith, Drew Brees, and Vernon Davis and Marcus Colston, and that back and forth.
It's the catch 3, actually.
Yep.
Because you have the catch with Rice and Clark and Montana.
Yep.
Then you have the Terrell Owens, and then this one almost mimicked the T.O.
Dude, it's
to
so
Vernon
crazy.
Davis, and he's crying as he's walking out the field like T.O. was.
Right. But just watching those last 5 minutes, forgetting how many twists and turns of drama, of emotions that game took, from the Saints taking the lead, the 49ers taking the lead, the Saints taking the lead, the 49ers taking the lead. Obviously, number one is the divisional round 13-second game with Chiefs and Bills and what happened in the last 4 minutes. But it sort of just reminded me of, like, Mercedes Lewis is still playing, but, like, Vernon Davis was out there doing some crazy stuff in that game, and that crazy
draft
catch.
class. You know what's crazy? Same draft class as Reggie Bush, Vince Young, A.J. Hawk.
Wow.
Remember Matt Leinart?
I do remember him.
Same
Yes.
draft class as Matt Leinart.
I'm familiar with the Heisman
Jay
Trophy
Cutler.
winner. Familiar with the Vandy grad.
Antonio Cromartie's had how many kids since then? It's just that. I mean,
Great way to put it.
That is
I think
wild.
like 12 since he was drafted. I'm not sure. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Sean Payton. Oh man, if you could...
D'Amico Ryans was the same draft class.
Now that's pretty amazing. That is the stat of the day. That Mercedes Lewis is still playing, and he was drafted in the same draft class as the Houston Texans head coach in the divisional round coming up this weekend. A team that's not playing in the divisional round, and if they'd have got there, they would have won. They might have won the Super Bowl if they'd have just got past that pesky first game in the playoffs. All right, last segment here on a Thursday. The program comes your way next. In the show, we've heard from Kent Swanson, we've heard from Matt Verderam, and then Andy Reid, Drew Tranquil, and DeAndre Hopkins. And Bill Self in the first hour that we talked some college basketball with that KU and Iowa State game last night. Sean Payton had his end-of-season presser yesterday afternoon and talked a lot about, what this season was for the Broncos and Bo Nix and everything and moving forward. He was asked about, what they got from this year and playing in the playoffs and as they move forward with a team and maybe how close they are. Here's Sean Payton's response and answer to said question.
We're not looking backwards. We're looking ahead. And it starts with the division, and there's a lot of confidence in this team. If we could get past that game, the next game we had to play, we felt real good about. And so we're still not there yet. And yet we're a lot closer than we were at this time a year ago.
So there's Sean Payton. It starts with the division, and we felt pretty good. The next game felt real good about. We could have got past this one. That next game we felt really good about. Because what he's saying is for them moving forward, it starts with what they do in the division. And then he goes into, in his mind, speaking of division, we liked what that next game brought about. Feel really good about that next game / division team that we're passing up right now. Putting those words in his mouth there at the end, but Sean Payton. And here's the thing. He's familiar with the playoffs. He knows how it works. You don't get to play a fake game after the fact. Like, we've talked about, I think the Chiefs probably beat the Rams in the Super Bowl if they get past the Bengals. Or, I think the Chiefs probably beat the Rams in the Super Bowl if they get past the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. Hopefully the Rams don't play in a Super Bowl anytime soon because apparently the Chiefs can't get there. It's either the Chiefs or the Rams in every Super Bowl since 2018. But, somehow the playoffs were going to be the same. As 38-0 is, yes, it was a closer game earlier in the year when the Chiefs were trying to figure out what was going on and what they were. They were trying to figure those things out at the time with injured players and a left tackle, trying to figure those things out along the way. And yes, it took a blocked field goal to get that win. But since the Super Bowl in 2009, Sean Payton's had 5 playoff wins. Patrick Mahomes is playing in his 7th straight divisional game. He's 6-0 in the divisional round games.
Well, the Broncos won 38-0 against Carson Wentz.
That's true.
And the backup, so they're feeling pretty good. I don't know if they know that, though. If they think that's the same players who will be starting in the playoff game against them. That's weird.
That is
Sean.
That is, and hey, the Raiders were close to winning in Kansas City until they didn't. There's a lot of teams that are close until they don't. Oh, we almost beat them. Yeah, but you didn't. Well, the 49ers almost beat them in the Super Bowl twice. But you didn't. Well, the Eagles almost beat them, but you didn't.
You know what you call an almost win?
What's an almost win?
A loss.
Oh, it's a loss. Okay. Well, if the Broncos had beaten the Bills, the matchup they liked even better was the Chiefs in the divisional round. But unfortunately, you've got to be able to win that game and not lose by 4 touchdowns to be able to go and play that game.
Does Sean Payton know that, Dylan? Dylan, do you think Sean Payton knows that, or
probably?
He's the king of hypotheticals.
Probably would have been to another Super Bowl if the officials weren't trying to get the Rams to that Super Bowl and swallowed the whistle on a pass interference.
That was pretty rough.
That literally so bad that they changed the rules the next
you're not
season.
wrong. You're not wrong.
And then changed it back because the referees were just like, "No, we're gonna stick it for our own guys here."
They never.
Whenever they can change the game with one flag and flip the field, they got to do it.
They never overturned any pass interference. It's like whatever the call on the field is like.
That was on purpose. That was on purpose.
Exactly. Yes.
So Dylan, what do you make of Sean? What if Payton?
I don't know. Sounds like the Bengals and the Chargers and every other team that loses. And
he's going to be in Denver a whole lot longer. and he's experienced and been there, done that. But it's a little Antonio Pierce-ish.
It is. No, I'm not going to defend that
because
it really does sound like if man. It's the if man stuff that's going around with Herbert and Burrow and everyone for some reason that people just get to do that now.
Yeah. But Antonio Pierce, they won that game, and the Chiefs weren't resting their starters. So the Raiders won that game, came into Kansas City on Christmas Day, and pushed them around. And it got a lot of confidence going on with the Raiders in the offseason. It did not turn out well for them. But they did come close to winning yet again. And the Broncos almost won earlier this year. And had they won that game earlier this year, then you would have had to see a full Chiefs roster on the field against the Broncos.
Maybe don't put me at guard on your kickoffs.
Right, that's exactly
or
right.
Your field goal protection.
So they would have then had to play in Week 18 against the Denver Broncos, which could have, well, I guess it wouldn't have cost them because they would have had the win earlier in the year to make the playoffs there. But
playoffs?
But it starts in the division. And if we would have got past this one, the next game we felt real good about. Which is, which is Sean Payton's way of saying we feel good about where we are against the Chiefs in this division right now moving forward.
Would you not?
The Bengals can
If I'm
play.
Sean Payton, like
I would.
From what they've done this year.
I'm dealing with Russell Wilson's cap hit. I have a rookie quarterback, and I took him right down to the wire, then beat him by 38. It was the backups.
Bengals felt great until what happened this year. Wait until they get this figured out. Oh, wait until they have Joe Burrow healthy. 9-8.
Joe Burrow's dead then, forever. In your
No.
eyes?
But my
I'm
point
saying,
is,
like, he's
teams
never gonna
talk
get back.
smack all the time, and they go, "Well, wait till this happens. Just wait," and then it never bleeping happens. Do it. Stop talking.
I know.
It's a show me
we
state.
waited until there's no way he can, actually prove if he's right or
Then
wrong.
don't
And now we're
lose.
talking bleep. So.
Then don't lose. That's the
I agree.
softest thing. Sherman Ultra Soft Sean.
Because he's doing
That's
the
his
same
new
thing on the other
name.
side where he doesn't have to prove that he's right.
Okay,
So I get that.
I'll prove this. I think the Chiefs would beat him in the playoffs by 74. Oh, looks like Sean will never know.
Sure.
Just saying. Dog.
Had to take on Russell Wilson's cap hit with a rookie quarterback and had him.
They are the last part. I didn't cut it at just the thing because the last part is right, where he said that we got a long way to go, but we're in a much better spot than we were a year ago.
They are, but now I want them to miss the playoffs even more next year.
Yeah.
Congrats on going 7-10 next year, Broncos.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, but they feel real good about getting past the Chiefs.
Hypotheticals.
That's a